is
Hold on
okay.
1 second, Morris. Let me. Hey, Dave.
Yes,
Tell me
sir.
about you. Your the stuff you got going on, the tutorials and everything. Just give me a quick rundown, real quick. You're
Man, well,
live. Go.
yeah, man. So, hey guys, thanks for coming to this. First of all, man, this is exciting. The short version. I have been making music for a long time, and one day I was sitting with my wife. She said, "Hey, you should start writing about it. You should blog." And so I did. I started a blog, got a WordPress site. I was working on building a label with my buddy, a little independent deal, and so I'd done a couple WordPress sites for his, kind of trial and error. I started a blog, and I posted. I think it was my first or second article. And what I did was I included Graham Cochran from the Recording Revolution in a top 10 musicians engineer resources list. Pensado's place is 1, Graham was 2, and I responded to one of Graham's posts on his site, and he tweeted it out. And my website blew up pretty much overnight. And Dan, I'm pretty sure how it worked was Dan saw Graham's tweet, got in touch with me, hey, would you be interested in contributing to the Pro Audio Files? And the rest is pretty much history, man. Just started doing some videos and doing tutorials and figuring it out one day at a time and just kind of talking. I've been doing this for so long and just kind of talk anyway, so I figured why not learn the video deal, and so that's where I'm at now. So I've released my first couple products. It's one's called the Mix Series. A lot of guys, probably the most popular question for me has been, hey, can I get a copy of your Pro Tools template? Hey, can I get your setup? Can you just give it to me, or can you walk me through how you organize things and get that going? And so so I put that into a package, but I didn't just do it for the template. I kind of did an overview of the concepts, and it's kind of a organizational setup, get you going, get you organized kind of deal. And then the good stuff comes in with mixing vocals that I just released. That one I'm really excited about. I've had an incredible response from it. No complaints thus far, which is always a good thing. And that's where we're at, just doing tutorials, mixing records. I'm excited. Mixing for probably the biggest client I've ever had came to me from me doing these tutorials, and it's a Grammy Award-winning Latin artist named Alex Campos, working on his record right now with Redimidos, if I'm saying that correctly, and just having a blast making music, doing a little bit on the side with the music business, doing some blogging, getting some products, in-depth stuff, and
What's
that's
your
where we're at.
website?
DavidGlynnRecording.com.
GLENN, correct?
N, yep. So DavidGlynnRecording.com. I've got MixingVocals.com is another one. And yeah.
And the Pro Audio.
ProAudioFiles.com. TheProAudioFiles.com. Yep.
TheProAudioFiles.com.
And then of course we got all the great stuff on Matthew Weiss is MixingHipHop.com, and that takes you to all three. He's got a better setup than I do.
Okay, Morris, hit him with your question.
Very cool.
Oh, okay, so I have a mixing question. So
yeah,
my
man.
question is, what do you do, and what's your approach to deal with the relationship in mid-range, as far as your lower mid-range as far as, that kind of sweet spot where a lot of stuff lives, as far as that low-end content, maybe maybe from that 200 hertz to about that 800, 900 area,
Sure.
that spot where it could be dangerously it could sabotage, or totally give the mix a nice balance. How do you approach doing that, versus where you have bass and drum, and a lot of time the bass and kick will have that lower, but how do you deal with, what do you do to address that mid-range to give it substance?
That's a great question, man. It's changed now as compared to how I used to do it. I used to be the guy who would mix all the music and then try to sit a vocal on top. And I guess I had decent success doing that, but everything just kind of sucked. So so I switched to I get the kick, the snare, the beat, the drums, but I get the vocal in the mix first before that stuff actually. And so then what I do is I listen up against the kick and up against the bass and the snare. I like boosting the snare around 200 hertz. I don't really like much below 200 in a vocal anyways. What I started doing was I started using a high cut, and I would pull that back on a reference track, and I would listen to when some of my favorite records, I lost a vocal and I only heard bass, and it would be anywhere from 200 hertz to 150, 125 sometimes, depending upon the vocal, but there wasn't much in there. So I tend to scoop a lot out in that range. I'm using multi-band compression now to control the, 200, 400, some of that area, but I'm real careful in what I allow the bass versus the vocal to accomplish in that lower mid-range, the lows. I think that the featured section for the vocal for me is around the 1K, 800 to 1.5 ish, depending upon the singer.
Right.
And so I'm real careful to not notch like a complete suck out of all the frequencies in that range, but I'm real careful to dip around there in other instruments, so that I have a sweet spot for that vocal to sit around the 800 to 1.2, 1.5. Yeah, so I think that where I get into trouble sometimes is I work with a lot of guys who record from home, and they're recording in closets and things like that. So I've had to do a lot of surgery with a lot of my records that, I got spoiled working in the studio for forever, and then my wife and we had a baby, and so I'm doing everything from home, and it seems like the records that are coming to me are more home studio records. And now versus when I was at the studio, when I had studio, guys are coming in and working with me at the studio, tracking on U87s and U47s and whatnot. But having to get a little more surgical with the mid-range, with stuff that is recorded in a bad environment, not a great sounding room.
All right.
So does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah. Now, can I get just just a little bit of clarification?
Sure.
When you're using your multi-band, are you doing it on the overall mix, or are you actually meaning using multi-band on the individual elements?
I'm using multi-band on. So how I approach the first step in vocal would be, the first step I'm doing now is clip gain, but then I go to like a subtractive EQ. So I'm going in and pulling out frequencies that I don't like. And usually it's 100, 150, 200. I'm dipping in there a little bit. Well, now what I'm doing is, instead of just removing them, I'm applying multi-band compression, and I'm setting the threshold to push down on those lower frequencies whenever I don't want them, whenever it exceeds a certain threshold. And then it doesn't suck them out if I don't need it. Like a higher phrase, I may want some of that 150, 200 in something when a singer goes up to the higher octave or something. But I'm using that multi-band on the vocal to control the lows and the low mids. Now that's my approach now.
That's cool,
actually,
man.
I'm pretty sure I have a tutorial that's going to hit the channel here soon that shows that example. So maybe keep an eye out for that one. That would be a good one to kind of explain that. That and clip gain, using clip gain in a crazy way now too. So.
Oh yeah. That definitely makes stuff easier. That's real cool, man. Thank you. I appreciate
absolutely, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Sir.
Morris, that's the best you can hit him with, man.
Yeah.
Well, I got more than that, but I didn't know how
warm up,
gentle
man.
it needed to be, man. Okay, I got another one for you.
Shoot.
Oh, okay. What about dealing with phase? Okay, like for example, let's talk about a plugin like a Waves plugin like S1, or different plugins that do widening when you're trying to get more width. And how they kind of mess with phase to kind of achieve that. Like, I don't know if you use the S1 or not, but what are your thoughts or approaches to deal with issues when you have phase issues, when you're trying to get more width, but you end up getting some phase issues? And I'm talking.
Oh, skipped out on me. I lost him.
Okay, we'll get him. When he comes back, he can ask about the phase. Chef had a question. Steve Sheffield had a question. He says he wants to know how people are getting the vocals to be real up front and in your face. And he says, I'm sure the majority of it comes from tracking, but for you and for Matthew.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you guys do?
Before that, how do I get it to not be like I'm just seeing a picture of myself? I know what I look like. I don't want to see myself. How do I?
Click on your picture. See,
Oh, okay. Now I see. Oh God, now I see you. That's
No.
when, yeah, if you, like right now, if I were to click on one of you guys' pictures, it would stay up there no matter who's talking, since I'm hosting. And there'd be a blue ring around it. So that anyway, that's how you keep somebody's picture up. You click on it. So
Sweet.
okay, who wants to go first?
I'll take it. I'll go first, and then he can improve upon my answer.
Okay.
So in your face, parallel compression for me, and then limiting. I mean, that's why I said Matthew can improve upon it. But if anyone has seen my technique on the channel, the Pro Audio Files YouTube channel, I will use compression in stages. The first thing that I'm using compression for is kind of catching some peaks after I've done some clip gain work. Catching some peaks, smoothing out the vocal. I've got the UAD stuff, so I'm using 1176, LA2A, kind of smoothing it out. I love what they do over there. UAD's got some killer stuff. And then I send that vocal to a parallel compression where, depending upon the track, the song, the vibe, the feel, I may be smashing it with 10, 20 dB of compression on the parallel chain and then blending that in. And then both of those for me meet at another aux called the vocal level, where I may hit it with a limiter. It just depends on the track. It depends on what the song's giving me, how much I want to ride the vocal. But for me, in your face comes from the vocal having the center stage, making sure that you don't put a bunch of stuff in the middle right in front of the vocal. I mean, give the vocal the dominance in the center. But then that compression to kind of keep it sitting on top, and then riding it in. Anything that sits just underneath it, push it up and keep it on top. I mean, Matthew could probably improve upon my answer there, but for me, it's parallel compression and depending upon the track, even limiting at the end of a parallel compression chain.
Well, I think what you said is at the end, especially, is really the crux of it. You said to give the vocal center stage, because in reality, it's never gonna be one thing that makes a vocal sound forward. It's all relative, right? If you have nothing in the mix at all and you just have a vocal playing and you turn your volume knob, that thing is gonna sound in your face.
Absolutely.
Pretty much. So the question is, how in your face do you want? Because if you think about it that way, mute everything, turn your vocal up, boom, it's in your face. Okay, now the question is, how in your face do you want it? Then you start bringing the snare in, the hi-hats, your bass, your other tangs, all around that, and then it becomes no longer a difficult concept. The question then becomes, how do you get the other stuff to still sound present while keeping the vocal forward? And that's where a lot of these other techniques like parallel compression, which Dave mentioned, is probably my go-to as well. That allows me to back the vocal up a little bit, relatively pushing everything else forward, but then push the vocal up even more without having to change that dynamic. So suddenly the vocal forward and everything else is adequately forward too. So that's it. You got to reverse that mindset to get to that point.
Sure.
John has a question for you.
Oh, what's he saying? So you had a compressor on the track and then send to a parallel compression track as well. Yep, and I actually, while Matthew, if he wants to elaborate a little bit, I'll pull up in a link and hit you with a link. It shows you exactly what I do.
Can I spoil it as you're pulling the link up?
Hey, go for it, man. Do it.
I think Dave and I are approach parallel sort of similarly, which is that it's one of the later things that I do in the processing. So I'll have my processing for my vocal, whatever compression I'm using for whatever reason, on the main track. And then from that, I'll create my parallel, because I want my parallel to basically be the same as my main track, just crushed to death. And then, after that, I might do some additional processing on the parallel track if I feel I need it. But mainly, I want it to sync up and be the same as the parallel track. I basically just want to isolate the sustain and body of whatever vocal I like at that point, if that made sense.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And I'm pretty excited about, you were talking before we hit go live, clip gain, and how I'm using clip gain. Dude, I'm pretty excited about it, man. I haven't seen it online, and I watch a heck of a lot of tutorials, but it'll be better when the video comes out. But to kind of briefly give you guys an idea, what I'm doing with clip gain is I'll take And just like I would do vocal automation, so like if you have a phrase where the singer starts loud but then ends, kind of quiet. Dave Pensato, I think he did a tutorial where he talked about Christina Aguilera. The ends of her phrases were always so key to the character in her voice, but he would have to go in and he would ride them up to make sure that you hear that. And sometimes compression alone just doesn't do that, so you got to go in and do some love. Well, I've been using clip gain to go manually from start to finish in a vocal and just listen to that on top with no compression, and use clip gain by putting breakpoints in and lifting the starts of the phrase or lifting a note inside. I've seen clip gain used, if I can explain this well without showing it, I've seen clip gain used horizontally to just pull up a phrase, vertically all of it, by 2, 3 dB or whatever the case, to get it to kind of be more balanced. What is pulling up in a unique way, kind of putting the breakpoint and just lifting up so that I wish I could show it, but it pulls the waveform, and you can visually see what it's doing to the waveform, to the vocal. It's awesome. I'm really excited about it. But that video will be out here in the next couple of days on the channel, so make sure you keep track of that. The Pro Audio Files YouTube. Looks like we got Morris back, huh?
Hey, David.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Morris. Morris, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. I muted you. There was sounded like a kid's toy playing. What was that last question about phase you had, Morris?
Wait.
Oh yeah, I was just asking about when you use a plugin, and I've seen it happen using S1 and similar things like that. A lot of with plugins, they kind of mess with the phase.
Uh-oh.
In order to
okay, so it's not just me.
Morris,
Morris, you're gonna have to type it out, bro. You sound like Darth Vader's son.
And I just wanted to get. Oh really? Oh, you can't.
You're coming. Yeah, you're coming in and out. As soon as you start talking about phase, the computer hates on you, bro. Just type it out. Type it out.
All right. Okay.
Are you able to type it into the message box using the iPad?
I got you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Type it over there, and we'll get to you. Hey, David, you had said that you take out 200. You actually get rid of 200 and below a lot of times.
I shouldn't say get rid of. I'm controlling it now with multi-band compression. So I'll pull down the reduction to -6,
okay.
-8, and then set a threshold so that whenever it gets above a certain threshold, it's knocking down 200 200 and below pretty aggressively with a shelf of multi-band compression, if that makes sense.
I got you.
Yeah, I used to go in. I used to go in and
one of the engineers here.
Oh, we were talking at the same time there. Go ahead, man.
No, go ahead. You used to go in and what?
Yeah, I used to go in and take, I use the FabFilter Pro Q a lot, and go in and just pull down and take it out. Take out 100, 150, 200, and listen for the vocal. But, like we're all kind of learning with multi-band compression now, you take it out, it's gone. You don't get it back. So no matter what the singer sings or the instrument plays, those frequencies are gone. You've reduced those by however much. And so with multi-band compression, the beauty of it that I'm just now discovering is just control. If you're a control freak, learn multi-band compression, and you'll be all right. Because I like, what's the best way to say this? If a vocalist is singing in a low range, you want to control that low end. You want to hit it down a little bit. You want to control it so it's not so loud. But then whenever the vocalist sings in a higher octave or goes up and starts giving more energy in that, you may want more low end than what they've given you in the performance. So using that multi-band compression, you kind of get to control a little bit more, pick and choose of what you're hitting down or what you're boosting in the low range, instead of just cutting it or getting rid of it altogether. Matthew could probably elaborate on the more on the technical side. I'm more of a feel and taste mixer. He could probably kill the technical description better on the multi-band.
I think you described. I think you just described it very well. I mean,
awesome.
Is there a specific I mean, multi-band compression, I think one of the things that's tough about it is that it is an extremely technical process. Because not only do you have all the attack and release and complications that come in with regular compression, which is tough
It's already
for
confusing enough.
it's already even if you know what everything does, it's still difficult because your ear has to be really finely tuned to it. Then factor in that you're using crossovers and crossbands to isolate that to specific frequencies. It's like this just got 10 times harder. And if you have something like the FabFilter MB, which is the coolest plugin in the
I love it. That's what I'm doing, man.
You have a knee, you have a look ahead, you have expansion mode and compression mode.
Side chain.
And a free band sidechain that links to itself as well as an external sidechain that links to it. You can pretty much literally do anything that you want with it. So it's like, I should write a user manual. Give that filter to pay me to write a user manual.
You do a whole tutorial training on that, yeah.
Hey guys, what FabFilter plug are you guys talking about there?
Pro MB.
MB?
Yeah, multiband.
Okay.
MB for multiband.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, man, it's a beast.
Yeah, it's the coolest plugin ever.
I keep hearing good reviews about that. Don Patterson was asking, you know, do you cut all the way up to 200 on vocals with a high pass? And then let's see, what's this other question? He had a second. It says, Don Patterson and Pensado student says, ask him why keep anything below 200 since the vocals don't get there. Wait, some vocals do get there.
Yeah, the chest of it, the fullness, the
Hear that sound?
yeah.
That's my chest cavity resonating. That low tone. My voice. If I take that away, I sound like this. I
Yep.
sound like I'm talking like this.
One of the guys here, Dre the Most, he kept saying that my vocals sounded too thin to him, but I wanted my vocals, like I love hearing vocals float above the low end. It's like when I get rid of quite a bit up to around that 200 area, that low end just it just comes through the way I like it, and the vocal seems like this lightweight thing that just sits there, and the combination of that low end coming through and that vocal just sort of floating, that feeling, I love it. But one of the engineers here says he really wants that feel of that power in that 200 hertz range. So we end up mixing two totally different ways.
Sure.
And we'll go back and forth. I'll come in and lighten his up. He'll come in and add it back. And we go back and forth until we get something we like.
Yeah, I mean it's a taste thing for sure. It's you know, depending upon the song, the track. I'm pretty surgical. Sometimes if I've got bass or I don't know. I guess for me, I've got the luxury. I mix a lot of records that I produce and that I write and that I co-write and do all that kind of stuff with. So I'm really fortunate to be able to control it early in the process. So if I've got a low register verse, the singer singing low, and I want the fullness in the 200, I'm kind of careful as a writer producer to make sure that the bass of that part is up higher on the fretboard, or the keys are higher up, or whatever, to try to arrange that to if I want the vocal to be the warmth and the smooth low end that you're talking about there. But I'm a big bass guy. I'm big subs. I don't know if you guys have heard of the guy Salvo. He's out of Nashville. He's mixed a lot of gospel records. Israel Houghton, if I'm saying that weird. All kinds of stuff. He's multi-Grammy award-winning mixer, and I listened to his record. It was called Jesus at the Center. It was a live record, and I couldn't believe how much subs and low end was in his record, and I was completely changed in the way I mixed. And really, no matter the style, I've kind of shifted to prefer lots of subs and low end, and even if it means lower RMS or whatever you want to call, the loudness, the final loudness, I don't really care about that anymore. But yeah, so the bass and kick and things like that I do a lot of low end treatment so that my vocal at 200 can dominate or can sit nicely. But like I said, a lot of it's in the writing and producing as well.
Okay, John Witt, go ahead and ask him your question.
John.
Unmute yourself and hit him.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
what's up, man?
How's it going, brother? I was looking at your room behind you there. It doesn't look like you have any treatment, any diffusion.
Nope.
So do you primarily mix in headphones or?
You know what? The secret is about to come out. So I was real fortunate to work out of a beautiful studio in Orlando. I'm from Orlando. It's called Stark Lake Studios. The place is insane, and treated any speaker you can imagine. I have my own speakers. The whole deal. It's a beautiful place. And my wife and I had our baby, and so I moved into my bedroom. I mix in my bedroom. There's nothing on the walls. There's nothing here. I mix on Biodynamic DT770s, and I reference the crap out of everything that I mix. And I've listened to music on those. I kind of know what they do. I know that when I go to the car, if I hear that my low end doesn't match up to, for this Pablo track, we referenced a lot of Lil Wayne and Kanye and stuff like that. If my low end isn't hitting the way theirs is, I got work to do. So there's pros and cons. I work from home, so I roll out of bed, make my coffee, and I'm back in my room. That's, not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but yeah, I mix off headphones, and I've got a Bose computer's like $120 stereo speaker system. I'll reference on that, reference on the iPod, headphones, the car, and that's how I'm making it work. So it's more about the tools and how you use them, I would say. Would I benefit from a treated room and getting better speakers and all that kind of stuff? Probably. It would help eliminate some of the trial and error of it. But yeah, man, clients haven't been complaining, and things have been working out this way. So that's the way I'm rocking it for now.
That's awesome. Good
Yeah,
job.
man. Appreciate it.
That's it for him, John?
That's it for now. That's all I can think of at the moment.
Okay, let me get to Morris's question real quick. He typed it out. He says, what do you suggest doing to avoid phase problems when you use plugins like Waves S1? It kind of creates issues with phase when you use it on vocals, a chorusing type of effect.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to know, what do you do to handle the width issues with those plugins?
Well, I like the Waves S1, and I like UAD Dimension D. I like I do the whole was it Kenny? I can't remember. I always say his last name wrong, but Gioia?
Kenny Gioia?
Gioia, yep. I'm talking like the early days of the Duck, when he posted that tips and tricks forum. On there, he shot out about 35 milliseconds on the left, 35 milliseconds on the right. The left 0%, the right 100% wet on a delay, a stereo delay, and then fading that in, kind of like a fake widener. It goes back to tracking. I'm really particular how I track vocals, and I like to create that width in the parts, doubling, tripling, whatever it is. But when I'm using plugins, S1, I don't want to say I'm not worried about phase, because that's not true. But I'm not afraid to slam the S1 all the way up. Or, Pensado's got an ITO where his doubler is the S1 pushed up quite a bit, and then boosting 7K with an SSL EQ, and the doubler, all three. So it just depends. If it sounds bad, then don't do it. If you're using an S1 and you feel like it's phasing or it's doing something wrong, then maybe try something else. Try duplicating the track and spreading them out, millisecond wise, or something like that. But I haven't really encountered any like phase problems, so to speak, by using that plugin. I've used it on the master bus, the 2 bus. I've automated the S1 to push things wider at the hook. Do that all the time. But I'm not necessarily getting. I use the isotope. They have a harmony generator, an isotope nectar, and I'll take and create 2 unison harmonies, so to speak, and then pan those hard left and right, and then I'll send to that. I'll solo the harmonies within the plugin, and I probably need to do a tutorial on that, getting all. It'd be great to visualize it, but yeah. So I'll send it into there and then blend that doubled-ish vibe in. But yeah, I'm not sure that I'm worrying too much about phase coming from the plugin whenever I'm working with the S1. If that's a letdown, I apologize, but Maybe you're hearing it better than I am too, because I'm not too proud to say that maybe I'm not hearing it right.
You might like what you're hearing.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I add the phaser all the time to vocals too. So
Yeah, I'll come in and people will say, somebody nerdy will say, "Bruh, such and such is phasing," man, I like that sound. You know,
yeah, sounds good.
yeah.
It is good. Sounds good. It's good.
All right, who else has a question for him? Let's see, Giuliano, you back? Giuliano's not back. And Nick, did you have a question for him? You guys mean to tell me y'all gonna come into this hangout and disappear and let your picture show up, sit up there, huh? Dave Dean, go ahead.
Hey, Dave. I have a question. So I've been having issues lately of having my mixes sound a little too congested in ways, because my productions, usually my arrangements have a lot going on. Usually, like what would you advise is the best thing that I can do? I mean, granted, I know it's like making space for everything, but I sort of can't exactly wrap my brain around how you would approach those certain things, because typically what I do is I try to take the elements that are going to really shine and carve space around those, but I sort of am still having that issue of, I don't know if you have any advice for that for me.
Yeah, man. Hey, that's an awesome question. I just did a tutorial where I took synths. I took 5 or 6 different synths, and the producer picked some pretty sweet sounds, but all of them just playing at the same time was just a chaotic mess. It sounded like crap. So what I did was I used filtering a lot for picking what I want things to have in them. So I would pick from those which synth I wanted to, which synth had the sweetest, 100 to 200, 100 to 400, and I'd let that sit for that synth. But then the next, all of them, I would remove 100 to 400 or dip quite a bit of it, so that synth lives in that space and that's it. The same thing for kind of like kick and bass, 100. If I want the kick to be dominant at 100, then I'm pulling out a little bit of bass at 100, as well as side chaining. It just depends on the vibe. But filtering can get you a long way. And then besides just filtering, I mean, I'm talking roll top end off of whatever. So pick a synth or pick the element that you want, and just kind of take it. And if you can see my arms, just squeeze it in and let it only live in that certain area.
Just high pass, low pass, and just have
low pass,
sort of
man.
just like
just kind of pick what you want, and then then you can start to blend them, and they almost become one sound. The other thing is the mute button. I mean, I was just last night up at a church down the street, and I was running sound, and they have a mini grand on stage with an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar, and a bass, and a full band, and then they've got the keys and the synth, and they want the subs of the synth, but they want the lows and the piano, and they want the acoustic guitar to be full whenever, and it just doesn't work that way. So you just start from scratch and put what you want to prioritize, the kick, the snare, the low end, the beats, percussion, the vocal, and then fill in the gaps with that. And then I do a lot of automation. So not only will I pick frequencies, sometimes I will take, I'm doing this a lot more now, where I'll take, let's say you have 4 guitars, and the low end, you pick two of the guitars to have low end left and right, and then the next 2, you do what I was talking about, and you remove 2, 300 and below on the others, so that they sit on top of now, and you have 4 guitars at the same time. Well, then let's say at the verse, the next section, you want the guitars you removed all that low end from to now have that low end and reverse the rolls. Then what I would do is I would duplicate those tracks, put a breakpoint, drag them to a new track, and treat them independently from section to section, as well as taking the volume automation and dipping it down 10 dB or muting it for a section. Just kind of in mixing, modern mixing, the way that home studios have taken over, I think that being a producer, arranger, music mastermind is key to being a solid mixer, and helping correct a lot of arrangement errors that producers are making. So there's a couple tips. Does that answer your question somewhat?
Yeah, thanks, man. That's great. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Sweet, man, for sure.
The whole thing about let me ask it this way. I want to ask a question. Production. You
Yep.
said you get to do production on a lot of the stuff that you're working on. Would you give us some more stuff that you're doing that makes it to where mixing is easy?
Oh man, so I'm a guitar player. I program drums, beats. I remember I bought an EMU and then a Korg Electribe. I thought I was buying a drum machine to program live drums, and I was buying a beat machine, and I figured out, oh, this is what this is for. So I got into making music production, that kind of stuff. But I love the Apollo. So when I'm tracking guitars, I'm boosting the crap out of the high end if that's the way that I need the guitar to be in the mix. I'm mixing while I'm recording. I'm compressing while I'm recording. I'm printing and committing to sounds while I'm recording. I've got a vision in my mind, and as a mixer, I think that we have an advantage because we know that the end result, you're not going to be able to have low end and everything. You're not going to be able to have everything top end, classy and sizzly and bright and all of that kind of stuff. So while I'm producing, recording, I play bass, do a little bit of everything. As we'll see on the channel, we're going to shift gears. My stuff's going to lean a little bit more production based. I'm going to start producing tracks and taking people step by step into a production series. But I'm committing to sounds. I'm recording guitar parts and keys, and I'm communicating to the people I'm working with, hey, the acoustics there are percussive. They're not going to be full sounding, full bodied. So instead of miking it at the sound hole or using multiple mics, I'm going to slap it up at the 12th fret, 14th fret, feel around there, and I'm going to record the acoustic to be percussive and rhythmic. Or vice versa. If I need something to be full sounding, I'm going to record it to be full sounding from the get-go. I'm going to apply EQ, compression, those kinds of things to get me the result that I want. And then the mixing for me when I mix my own stuff, my own productions, is more kind of the final, getting everything to just kind of gel together, and automation, picking and choosing if I haven't already, nailed the arrangement, working on some of that kind of stuff. Sound replacement, I'm using Superior Drummer or BFD or whatever for drums, or I've got an ungodly amount of drum samples, so I'll pull those in, whether it's Contact or whatever, and I won't just leave those as is. If I pull in a beat or a kick, snare, whatever, I'm going to nudge them. I'm going to put the groove in, and then I'm going to distort the crap out of it. I'm going to saturate it. I'm going to bit crush it or apply EQ. I'm going to actually process those things while I'm writing and producing the track, as opposed to just kind of putting things in place and getting a bunch of stuff in the song and then expecting it to work well and making it harder for myself in mixing. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so you haven't used White's drums, huh?
I have, actually, quite a bit. Yep, I actually have. The kicks, the snares. I like the layer drums quite a bit, so I've used his for some natural sounds. I actually love them. They're really cool. Actually, that's going to be some of the stuff I feature. I'm going to be featuring Matt's drums. That, and if you guys haven't heard of That Sound, iwantthatsound.com. Give a shout out to Dustin Burnett and Paul Mayberry. Man, they are killing it with the drum sounds. I love Slate. I'm a big Slate guy. I've got the Slate plugs. I've got Trigger, all kinds of stuff. But holy cow, iwantthatsound.com, and you're welcome, because I'm hooking you up if you haven't heard of them. They're amazing. Incredible stuff. Affordable like crazy. I think they're now in the process of doing their own plugin. They're going to be building their own virtual instrument. But best drum sounds I've ever heard by far. Drag them in, and it's almost too easy. But that's going to help out somebody out there. So, man, check that out. iwantthatsound.com. I'm pretty sure is a link. Or you can just Google that sound.
We always hear about mastering engineers helping the mixing engineer. So
Yep.
with you taking it and going from mixing to the recording, awesome, bro. We actually a lot of us should get into doing that more, where we have input on this what comes before.
Sure.
Matthew Weiss, where you at, bro?
I'm right here. I'm right here.
He's back. Okay, real quick. Chris Val, welcome.
Chris.
Are you there? You got your mic? Can you got to unmute yourself. Take your cursor up to the center top of the screen. You'll see a mic. It should be muted. You click on it, and you should unmute. Cute kid. Okay, we'll get him when he comes. Says, sorry, don't have a mic to join. Oh, my bad. Type your question off to the side, Chris, and we'll get to it. Matthew, did you have any questions or comments for him or anything you wanted to discuss?
Well,
besides White's drums.
if me and Dave get started, it could spiral out of control. I mean, you know, there's no clean segue into it, but I could definitely get going for sure.
A workshop coming to you.
Absolutely. I'm like the nerdiest human being on the planet, next to basically nobody.
Oh.
I'm obsessed with the concept of good, because that's what we do when we engineer. We decide what's good.
Yeah.
And then how do we know what's good? Because the music is there, and I'm not psychic. I don't know if that person's gonna like it, that person's gonna hate it. You know, so how do I make something good? And this is basically ethnomusicology. That's the question that's constantly being asked. That and about authenticity, which is a completely different subject. But one thing I don't do, so that's my lengthy segue. One thing I don't do too often, because I don't live in Florida, is Spanish music. I don't do a lot of Spanish music. I don't do a lot of reggaeton. I don't do a lot of, you know, the millions of different dance-influenced musics and things like that. But you do. So what I want to know is, but you also do a good share of other things. What are the differences in general that the clients come to expect when you're mixing Latin-based music versus, you know, things like hip-hop or
Sure.
traditional rock or whatever? And how do you navigate that? How do you change your expectation in your ear?
You know, there's a really easy answer, actually.
Oh.
I ask them what the heck they want it to sound like. Do you want it to sound like top 40 Katy Perry? Send me a Katy Perry song. Do you want it to sound like XYZ? And I go buy that song on iTunes, and I listen to it, and I take high and low pass filters, and I listen to what that song is doing, because those guys blow me out of the water, and I'm not to admit that. And so I listen to what they're doing in the music. I listen to the sounds that they've got, and I try the best I can. It's crazy. Part of it is just I don't even know, like, because I've got clients that don't speak a lick of English, and we use Google Translate, and we email, and it's a beautiful thing that they're such good people, and I love working with them, and they're some of my best clients, and that's how we communicate, is the translate button, and we get close. It'd be awesome. I could spend a whole hour telling you some of the crazy things that we've translated and it's wrong, you know, family, sister stuff, and anyways, but yeah, so I ask for references, man, and the other part of it is I think they come to me because I don't sound like what they're used to working with. So the guys that do end up coming to me and trusting me and working with me and liking what I do for their music is because it sounds different than what they're used to, maybe, and they like my taste.
This is for when people watch it on the YouTube. This is where you want to rewind it and listen to that again, because that is so important, and people often forget it.
Yeah, man. I what's that? You know, there's Indaba and Crowd Audio and some other stuff where everyone mixes the same song, and it just comes out so many different ways. Not one way is bad or, you know, necessarily perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but yeah. So it just, a lot of it comes down to taste and trying to communicate. That's the key thing for me is references. I mean, that's a short answer. Reference. Tell me what you want it to sound like, and I'm going to do the best I can to get your recording to that, or be honest with you and say, hey, this is super classy and bright and beautiful, and you've given me 8-bit crushed files, so I can't necessarily do that for you, but honesty with clients, that's taken a lot for me to learn. That lesson is not just to jump in and get going, but to actually try to communicate and understand what the direction and what their vision is, what their goals are, and yeah, use references.
Sure. Yeah,
Does that work?
That does work. That absolutely works. I mean, you know, I have anecdotes about the 2 points that I feel like you made about, you know, doing what you do because they came to you probably not through random selection, but probably listening to your reel. One of my biggest clients is a Grammy-nominated jazz pianist named Dory Kane, and he's fantastic. He is unreal on the keys. And when I mixed the first record that I mixed for him, you know, I do tons of hip hop and stuff. And jazz kicks are very light most of the time. They usually background because they're not as important as the bass, the upright bass, which is usually holding down the rhythm. So I've got the upright bass pretty up, but my kick is still sizable because that's how I hear things, generally speaking. So I've got, you know, it's not a hip hop kick, but it's a sizable kick that's knocking in the track. And I'm listening to it, and then I listen to a jazz record where it's like I barely hear the kick at all. I'm like, man, he's gonna hate this because my kick is gonna sound so weird. And what he said to me, and I won't say the other engineer's name, but he said if I wanted this to sound like a traditional jazz record, I would have hired this other engineer that I work with.
Yeah.
I want that. I wanted something that was different, and I still work with him, and it's awesome.
That's cool, man. Yeah, dude, I'm with you. I just did a record where we swapped out kicks like 20 times. And they wanted a jazz kick, which I had not yet necessarily worked with. It was like what it ended up being like 150, 200 was kind of a soft beater-ish, you know, hit for it, but no subs. No, it was just a little bit of a attack
like,
almost.
It's like a floor tom on its side with a soft beater. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fun to program. Detune floor toms and off subject, but yeah, man, that's awesome. I appreciate the question.
Yeah, well, okay, so I mean, as a more specific one, the one time I did do a reggaeton song, which was I think maybe 70 or 85 years ago, there was about 3,500 tracks of hand drums, and I didn't know how to. What do you do when you have more percussion than any other human being imagined could actually fit into a Pro Tools session?
Mute them. No, you know, being from Florida, I had kind of worked with some of the Tito Puente Jr. stuff. I don't know if anyone knows Tito Puente. Obviously, is a legend in the Latin music world, but I pretty much do the same thing I do with everything else, and I use high and low pass filters to pick which percussive elements I want to feature, and then I'll ride up and down the various elements depending upon what I want, louder or softer at whatever point in the song. Do a lot of transient designing. That's not really answering your question so much.
That's good though, because I was about to ask you about that. How do you like? I never, with hand drums in particular, especially when there's lots of them, I find if the transients are too much, it sounds like this like weird.
Yeah. So there's a good, just like I would use EQ, high and low pass filters, or suck out frequencies to allow for others to live there, I will use transient designers in the same way. So I'll boost the attack on some elements, but then suck the attack out of others, or sustain up or down, depending upon which element it is, so that they can kind of create a smooth vibe between them, I guess. I don't know. Maybe a better way to say that, but
down like the centerpiece of the rhythm, like get the
attack. So fine, and I usually have to communicate with them. Hey, what do you want focused? What do you want to kind of drive this beat? Because sometimes any one of the percussion elements could drive the beat and live on top and be the foundational part. But kind of helping them help me understand where they want to go with it, so that I can feature that element and then go to work with EQ and transient designing and compression, that kind of stuff.
Nice. Nice. All right. Should we take a second break from where our conversation is going, since it's basically non sequitur, and see if there's any questions on the side scroll here, or somebody else wants to jump in, or because otherwise we're gonna start talking tutorials and then.
Oh, there you go, man.
Yeah.
We got Chris Val.
Yeah.
I see one here. Okay, David. What? Mott, you wanna?
Yeah, I'll read it off for you. It says, David, question. Working on vocals that aren't tracked in great places. how do you get the most out of a bad room or vocal that was tracked in small spaces? Say a vocal is recorded in a smaller closet. Any good techniques to kind of liven them up?
Man, this is the most difficult thing for me. Like I said earlier, I work with a lot of vocals that were recorded in closets or bedrooms or what have you. And next to telling them, hey, this is not a great recording and you need to either re-record it or re-record it, I will go to work with either saturation, distorting it. I will try to recreate that space if it sounds, like a small room. Maybe emphasize the small room sound for that vocal. It's unfortunate that we have so many closet vocals and poorly recorded vocals to deal with nowadays. But that and it's always the poorly recorded vocal in a poor space is the one where they've recorded it way too hot. So it's even more emphasized. So something, if you have no choice, you can't re-record it. Something that I've just learned and I've been doing is multiband compression. I will take the FabFilter Pro MB and I will solo a frequency band and I will slide it around to kind of find where the nastiest places are. Sometimes it's just one band, maybe two or three. Excuse me. And I will reduce or smack down that frequency that's giving me the most room tone or room sound. Sometimes it's, like I said, two or three bands. It could be 400, 300, 800, 1.5. I may have some nastiness there, and I'm using multiband compression to help clean that up. Also, actually just messaged Matthew about this the other day. I use the Isotope Alloy 2 multiband transient designer, which is, like Matthew clarified it for me, is pretty much multiband compression at that point. But I will pull down the sustain of those frequencies as well. So I'll take the multiband and I'll zoom in on a certain frequency range and remove some sustain from that, so that it kind of pulls back and tightens up the vocal performance rather than letting this poorly recorded room sound reverberate once you hit it with compression. The other thing is you can't really compress and smash a vocal that's been poorly recorded, and you're having lots of closet sound or whatever. You are probably better off writing it like crazy and spending 90% of your mixing just writing the volume of that vocal, so that you can kind of help not emphasize the room. You don't want to go there. So,
and you know
does that help?
With the smallest budget too.
Oh my goodness.
Did you do all that work?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, as soon as you start compressing and then you turn that volume up, all of that stuff starts coming, all those little nuances start coming out.
And you've replaced the drums, so they're smacking, they're clean, they're beautiful, big, ocean way room sound, and the bass is full and subs, and then you have a vocal that sounds like it was recorded in a bathroom. Which I have to admit, the first time I recorded vocals, my parents, I was so fortunate, they bought me a G4 with an Inbox 1, and I stinking stuck my microphone in the shower because I thought that was the way to do it. I think I was 16, and I've straight up recorded, or in the corner of a room. I think I've done that one too. I
go into some of these rooms, these vocal booths, and it's like 1 inch of foam and then solid wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this box, and all. So basically, you're getting just a whole bunch of stuff coming back at you in here.
You're almost worse recording in a closet.
Yes.
You'd be better just to stick it in the middle of the room and use a dynamic mic and eat the mic.
I have people stand. You know what? Part of my problem was they would go in the booth, and when they'd come out, it felt weird because I needed to hear what they were actually singing. I didn't know if the gear was messing something up, the room, or what. So I started having them stand next to me at the console or whatever, at the inbox, whatever, and have them rap or sing next to me. And I started, bro, there's stuff that I've heard now in people's voices that I thought was plug-ins screwing the vocal up.
Oh, no.
But it's their voice. People have some of the weirdest sounds coming out of their mouth when you start paying attention. But now, like I get better sound when I have them come in the control room a lot of times, and that open. I like that open sound a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
times. That
for
just
sure.
come in the control room and let me hear what I'm actually recording, so I can see if it's actually what I'm getting when it plays back. And that's what's been working out for me. I actually tell people to stop recording in their so-called vocal booth that they've worked hard for. And I tell them to come out and just record in the room and see what happens. But you said you said dynamic eat a dynamic mic.
Yeah, I love the SM7. Just pick
I'm
that.
hip hop, so that sounded bad. Something else we say, but eat it. So
Oh.
have them using a dynamic mic and get real close to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Matthew, what were you about to say?
It's just a really funny story that I'm over at this dude's place where he's been recording, and he's got the mic in the closet, no shocker there. And I said, man, why you got the mic in the closet? He says, isn't that what you're supposed to do? I said, go to the closet and talk. And he goes in the closet and he talks. And he says, how your voice sound to yourself? He says, it sounds like crap. And I was like, that's how the mic hears it too. So why you want to record in there? He goes, okay, what do I do? I said, well, if you really want to do it and you've got some like carpenter friends and stuff like that, build yourself a vocal booth, and I left it at that. But I didn't realize that he was literally going to do that like the next day. So I figured, it would be like a week later. He'd probably talk to me about it. We discuss how that goes about. Now, the next time I'm going over to this dude's place, he's got in his living room now this big booth, like the Phantom Toll booth, with movie blankets in it, but it's made out of wood. It's like a gigantic wood box you can walk into now. And I go in there, and I shit you not, the guy built a closet in the middle of his living room and was recording in there now. I was like,
Yep. Dude, that's crazy. I will take 3 microphone stands and I'll turn them into a T, so it's flat across, and I'll set them cattywampus and throw fat blankets over them, sometimes from the ceiling to the top of it, and kind of create a space. There's some cool stuff. I don't know if any of you guys are Dr. Luke fans, but he's got a couple of YouTube videos show him when he was tracking Katy Perry's vocals, and he pretty much did the same thing. He built a little space for her in the giant studio to kind of live in and vibe to while she was recording. I do the same thing with 3 mic stands and blankets, and that works better than going in the closet probably 9 times out of 10.
it's definitely a lot easier than actually building a closet.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Who is it? I think it's Nicholas Webb said, well, and I've checked this out recently, but the AE 400 is it 400?
The ribbon microphone?
Plug-in from Mac DSP. Have you guys had a chance to use that yet? It's the AE 400.
Not yet.
Okay. I'm gonna have to find my videos on it. I've had him I've had Colin explain it to us twice. He has a tool where the compression is different. Is it I think it's either the EQ. I think it's the EQ is different when the vocal gets loud as compared to when the vocal is softer. The EQ changes.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this to make sure I have this right. But,
I'm sad. I actually don't have any Mic DSP plugins.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I actually don't.
This new tool. I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna post it on this post in Pensado Students. But bruh, you're gonna sit here and say, "Are you serious? This is dope." I think it's the AE 400 that Nick was posting about in off in one of the these other things I'm watching over here. Okay, cool. Do you guys? I'm still stuck on this production stuff before mixing, which makes the mixing better or easier. Off-axis miking and mics that people would not even think that people would use. I
got a story for that. So, I go to Sansamp a lot. I go to Distortion, and if you guys are familiar with Plugin Mix and the Degradator, I don't even know. They've got crazy names. But something I do is I'll take a vocalist. You guys know those little guitar amps, the mini amps they have in the stores? You got little Fenders. It's just a desk size amp you can plug in and jam to while you're at the office or whatever. I've used those a lot for vocals, where I'll take, I was crazy lucky up in Indianapolis, a studio called Azimuth Recording Studios. They had C800Gs, C12s, U40s, I mean everything you can imagine. And I would take a vocalist and give them this crappy little, dynamic mic, or at one point I actually used a baby monitor and then I would track that have them sing into it, and then the speaker portion would go into like a C12 or something just to capture it. Used it for drums, for intros and stuff. I would put the baby monitor, the mic up in the AC unit or something crazy like that, or run pedals, put a mic over the drummer's head and run that through to another booth where I would have, tube screamers or delays, or I don't know if you guys know Mute Math. I'm a huge Mute Math fan, so crazy knobs and stuff, and then I put like the baby monitor's mic to record it, and then the speaker and another mic to record the speaker, if that's making sense. Stuff like that to kind of produce the sounds that you want, rather than waiting till you're in the box and figuring it out there. Kind of producing crazy sounds, stuff that you just use your own taste to and try it out. Sometimes it sounds like crap and it doesn't work. Sometimes it sounds like crap and it does work. But getting creative with production techniques and different mics, crappy mics, like you were touching on. I don't know, I meant to pull it up to say that just for that story, but kind of cut you off on that. Is that kind of what you're asking, like techniques to record? And
yeah, I was watching. Well, you know how you guys have the guitar pedals. One of the producers was, it might have been Eddie Kramer, whoever it was. He was recording and playing the pedals like they were an instrument itself, and so he was creating all this, recording it. People are scared of destructive recording. To hell with that. This guy was creating something with the pedal that was this live feel. He's recording the change, and I thought that was the coolest thing. But like, I constantly get our artists to sing on the side, sing in the back of the mic, do all kinds of stuff to create something different that in the mix besides these plugins we have, where we start using our creativity. What else have you done where it's just some crazy creative stuff?
That same kind of stuff. I'm a big Switchfoot fan. A lot of you guys know them. They're pretty popular. Neil Averon's been mixing a lot of their records. He was on Pensado's Place. You've got Mute Math. If you guys don't know Mute Math, go look them up. They've just awesome stuff. I can't remember. I think it was Rolling Stone voted them best live performance of this decade or something crazy. The drummer would have guitar pedals and a wall that they took plywood and just mounted pedals, and he would just be smashing stuff while he's beating on the drums and get different tones and just stuff like that. I'm a guitar player. Used to have pedal boards, multiple pedal boards with, it's just crazy. It gets nuts. Now I use an 11 rack and banks and presets so that it's a little more organized. But I mostly mix now, so I'm automating Waves guitar pedals, Sans amp on and off, stuff like that. Production wise, when I was working in the studios, it was a little more fun. I did a record for Warner Brothers for an artist named Amy Allen, and I started out, I just moved to Indiana, and I started out, just kind of met the owner. I had just gotten my Pro Tools certification, 6 months before or something like that for version 6, and started out just hanging out while she was working, and then she was singing, and I sang a harmony, just messing around, and she was like, I want you to be my co-producer. So, I got on my Pro Tools chops. They let me on the console the next day, and I started recording. The reason why I say the lead up to that story, we had a Papa John's night, had pizza come into the studio, and I was just kind of beating on the pizza box, and then I had some keys, and I would beat in my pockets, and I hit the keys, and she came in, and this girl stuck like 3 microphones in front of me and recorded me banging on the pizza. I think I got credit on the album for Papa John's Pizza Box. I did some percussion, guitar, and some other stuff, but I straight up had credit for Papa John's Pizza Box percussion. And we would take our keys and put them in a box, cardboard box, and smash them, and that would be a sound that we would record. I remember scratching on the wall, and that was my shaker tone. I would scratch on different walls, record that. Some other stories that may not be appropriate for my family to watch this back and hear about stuff that we've recorded, but yeah, man, just I became that from her. She really introduced me to just thinking outside the box, and I became the guy that would put a mic anywhere, would scratch on the wall, would beat on whatever it was and record it. Drumsticks on anything. Guitar-wise, I love crappy old guitars. There was man, I wish I could remember the name of it. Maybe someone can help me out. It's it was a guitar that was made way back when, and the amp was built into the case. I know Switchfoot has used them quite a bit, but you plug it in and it just sounded horrible, but it would make for this awesome, just trashy intro guitar for the lead lick, and then you like double it to clean it up a little bit or something. But there's something there. I used to be the guy that would record DI everything. I would use an ABY box and record everything clean, as well as send it out to the amp and put mics on the amp. And I kind of still like that because I like having the option for bass or lead guitar licks if they haven't been. And actually, they just released a video on the Pro Audio Files of me taking and blending guitar tones. It's pretty sweet. I think it's sweet. Hopefully you guys do too. But I took a clean tone, I took a slightly driven tone, and then I took the tone that the guitar player sent me, and I blended all three of them in a certain way, checked for phase, some of that stuff. But you hear as I solo and mute what each element is doing, and that's layering sounds. Goes back to production. So I'm a big fan of DI tracks and being able to get creative in the process. Man, what's some other stuff? The baby monitor thing that's classic. That's one of my favorite. Pretty sweet drum sound. If you can get it in a decent sized room, you can get it in a nice spot. It can be pretty cool. Just guitar pedals, man. All kinds of fun you can have.
Every time we grab something like a shoebox or table or paper and add some percussion or whatever to the mix, it brings stuff to life, bro. It just does not have to be some store-bought instrument. But every time we do it, people listen. Oh man, that's a cool section, and it's it might be this piece of paper. And we add whatever in, and it's just the coolest thing to people, and it's live. So yeah,
for sure.
Matthew wanted to.
Yeah. I just saw that. Quick. Gatorade bottles.
And then Vladdy, go ahead after him.
Yeah, I gotta actually peace out at 9, and I got a couple things I gotta do before then, so that's why I'm sort of turn in line here. I want to talk tutorials because we both write for the Pro Audio Files, and fun story about that actually. I'm like the evil dictator behind the Pro Audio File. Like Dan's in charge. He's actually in charge, but there was a point to him where I said like, yo, if people are gonna write for this blog and they're not good engineers, I will stop writing for this blog. And there was like a lull period for like a good year where there was like basically like 2 people writing for the whole blog. And then Kulp came along and I was like, his mixes better sound good. And they did. And they did. They passed. I was very. You might not know this actually, but I was like really ready to be like, if he sucks, I will can him myself. I'm not gonna do this shit. But so, and now you're doing tutorials, which is even better because now I can steal your techniques, which is great.
Oh man, hey, it's payback because I've taken enough of yours.
Good. That's what they're there for.
Sweet.
So, I haven't had the pleasure of actually seeing your tutorial yet, though. That's going to happen very soon. But give me the basic rundown.
So my first thought with the tutorials was I talk a lot, and the effective YouTube videos are 3, 4, 10 minutes. So yeah, but I love explaining things, and I love telling stories, and some guys, their taste would be, hey, I want to watch a YouTube video. I want you to shut up, pull up the plugin, do what you do, let me take that technique, steal it, and use it for myself, and then I'm out the door. But that, people that are like that aren't watching my tutorials because I'm very, I run my mouth a lot. So I like to teach. It's become, I can't imagine doing anything else now. And yeah, so the first tutorial, the reason why I created it was I had so many questions about, your template, my template. And I was like, yeah, the template, that's great, but you can have the template, but you're not going to sound like me or Dave Pensado or whoever, so let me make it about the concepts. And so I created the mix series, and that was to give people a organizational starting point to the methods that I use for subtractive EQ, then to compress, then to, you know, what to look for, how to organize and get a session going. I do some separating of tracks and some arrangement things. I've done some work through a rough mix point, and then that tutorial ends. It's got a lot of great content. It's got the template, and I've included session files with it, so you can actually follow along with me while I'm doing it. Even if you're not in Pro Tools, it's still a great thing. I had guys who are Cubase users like, man, hey, I converted your template, and I'm using it, and I love it. I love the workflow. I love the way that you've explained it. You know, I just don't use Cubase, so it would be a disaster for me to try to create a Logic or a Cubase template. Anyways, conceptual is the mix series, and then mixing vocals is going crazy. Everyone loves it. I'm super thankful, excited, and I just go nuts. I do a complete walkthrough of a vocal and a piano track, which is also free on my website, davidglennrecording.com. There's a free session files link. You sign up for the mailing list, you get those, and then when people mix that and they send it to me, I'm then sending them a full song with drums, bass, keys, guitars, the whole works. But mixing vocals, I take a vocal from start to finish, and then from there I jump into hip-hop specific techniques, and it's like 2 hours on a hip-hop vocal, then it's like an hour and a half on a pop singer-songwriter vocal, and then I get into a live gospel song, and then I've even got some pop vocals, and the artists are all pretty decently well known, not Snoop Dogg or Juicy J, but they're really talented artists. They're really great singers, and everything's recorded from really poorly, and I show you how to kind of work around that to record it really well in a good studio, to me recording it and explaining my thought process on vocals and parallel compression and multiband and EQ and delay, reverb, pre-delay, how to find the tempo for your pre-delay and create that effect, and how to avoid splashy reverbs, or if you want it, automating it, and all kinds of automation tricks and stuff like that. And that's at mixingvocals.com. Mixingvocals.com, davidglennrecording.com, and yeah, man, I'm really excited.
Yeah, that sounds intense. That sounds like I'm going to like book a Saturday for myself. And
that seems to be the email response that I get is, man, I've locked myself in the studio, and I'm having a blast watching your tutorial, which is great because I talk a lot, and sometimes I'm like, you know, I know some people will be like, hey, just shut up and get to it, but
I struggle with myself. I curse myself out while I'm doing these things, man. Yeah, as bad as I am on the tutorials when I'm writing and stuff like that in person, I'm like a million times worse.
I'm bipolar. I do it, man. I try to keep a clean tongue, but I definitely have some moments for myself when I'm recording these. I just recently learned to stop the recording and then, you know, punch myself in for another video rather than trying to get it all in one take.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess so there's two separate tutorials, and this might be aimed at two different things, but not to say that anyone couldn't benefit from a tutorial, because my feeling is no matter how good you are, anybody's tutorial, you're gonna find gems. But
yeah.
Who do you feel that your tutorials are going to help the most, in particular?
You know what? It's crazy that you say that, because I think a lot of people, because I like to think that I do a great job of a start-to-finish approach. I've marketed it towards a producer who wants to, you know, better their rough mixes, a tracking engineer who wants to take it to the next level and transition into mixing, you know, the big bucks, the mixing engineer, up-and-coming guy, or the seasoned pro who, you know, I'm learning from guys like you and Dave Pensado and Tony Maserati, and I'm obsessed with learning so much that I've taken those techniques and I've sort of made them my own in some ways, and then others I've straight up taken their technique and I'm stealing it, and then I'm communicating that, but not just, hey, here's the technique, here's why I'm using the technique, and here's how to apply that in certain situations. So I you know, I like to think it's for everybody. You know, it may be a little bit, I've had a couple people say, hey, this is a little bit beyond me for now, but man, I'm so excited to learn and grow with it, and to have this to reference and take my time with. And you know, there's learning pace for everybody. But yeah, I'd like to think that it could help anyone from just kind of starting out to understand the thought process behind plugins and concepts to someone who's making great mixes and just maybe finds a gym, like you said, in the in the midst of that 5-hour tutorial. Visitors.
Yeah, we'll talk. I got to talk to you about a bunch of stuff. I had a fantastic idea for a project with you actually while we were talking earlier. So we'll talk after the hangout, maybe like tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah, man, I've got a membership thing I'm working on too. I'd love to talk to you about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many things in the world because me and Dan came up with that other idea, this and that, and yeah, share it.
Hanging for now.
Okay, so now you're too deep into the tutorial. So what's next? How do you see this progressing in terms of more videos or?
Yeah, I'm going to be shifting gears a little bit more with production. Kind of Mott was talking about, mixing while you write and produce. I'm looking at doing some production. I guess it's not too early to say. I'm looking at hosting a contest, a multi-round contest where we'll have a scratch track and we'll straight up give the scratch track away and host a drums programming beat production round. The winner of that goes up on my website, where the next round, people doing bass, low end, synth, that kind of stuff, can download the winning synth or the winning files from round 1. Round 2 would then be, do that, pick a winner. It sounds a little complicated, but I think it's going to be really cool to shift gears into some production. And then once that production's done, a lot of guys are doing what I'm doing, and they're writing and playing and doing all of that. So kind of follow along the ride to then mixing it. And then I think I've had one song of the last 2 or 3 years of my work be mastered by a proper mastering engineer. Shame on me or not, that's just kind of how it's ended up. And so I'll walk through the mastering and then point to someone like an Ian Shepherd or any of those guys.
And then we'll talk about that too.
Sure.
Millions of things. I'm going to forget this stuff tomorrow, so I hope you remember.
Well, he's got the live button, so it looks like we're still rolling. So we'll be able to watch it back.
All right. Well, I got to go because now I'm going to be late. Yeah. Thanks guys
for risking your punctuality on hanging out with us.
You know what I mean? Yeah, thanks guys for letting me cut in line and all that stuff. I'm going to have to say sayonara real quick here.
All right, man.
All right, Matthew, we'll catch you later. It's funny because you just mentioned Ian, and Ian is talking to me in private messages on Facebook right now.
Is he?
I
Nice,
told him
man.
that you mentioned him, yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Hello. Okay, Vladdy, go ahead. You said you had a question for him, and we have another David that just entered. Wait, real quick, David, check. Give me a mic check real quick. You're going to have to unmute yourself. David, take your cursor up to the top where and you'll see a mic. Click on it to unmute yourself. And then David Stedman just muted David Glenn Kulp. David, you're going to have to unmute yourself too.
Handled.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
No worries.
I'm using my phone. I don't have a cursor phone.
Okay, hold on one sec, Vladdy. Then, okay, David, ask David a question.
Myself?
Yes. Do you have a question for Dave?
I've only watched a little bit. I thought it was pretty cool about the record everything. You know, I remember back in the day, I actually recorded Zipper for some scratching, and that was pretty fun. Right now, I don't have a question.
Okay.
Cool, man. The Zipper,
Vladdy,
that's awesome.
Vladdy, go ahead and beat him up.
Well, I won't do that, but it's, first of all, I wanted to thank you for all the gems you dropped in this hangout. It's just so good.
Man, I appreciate it.
So I saw you. That's a SM7B, right? Your mic.
Yeah, I just picked that one up mostly for the voiceovers, but then the tutorials. But then I have a friend who's an extremely sibilant singer, and we're getting ready to do a full record. So I heard Jason Mraz and some other guys used it to control that, and then I think Pensado mentioned it on the episode with Tyler Ward about the SM7B being a great choice for that, so I picked it up.
So with regard to that, I wanted to ask you, how would you record a singer? Like, what placement would you use with that type of mic?
You know, I would take this big old guy off, if you guys can see it, the big old pop filter windscreen. I may put the smaller one on and try that one, but then I would even take that one off and just put a proper pop filter on. When you pull it off, there's, you know, the cool looking metal perforated shield looking thing. And then I'm sending that straight to my UAD Apollo, where I've got the API, the 1073, you know, those gym plugins, those go-tos that I'm using. I run it through an 1176, and give or take the dynamics of the vocalist, I would record it through that and commit to those sounds, and then hit the editing. Is that kind of what you're asking? Like how I would? And I'm recording at home too now. I am recording in my closet. I've got blankets and I've got stuff, and I'm, you know, gone in and tested it like crazy and clapped and done my deal to it. You know, because we had a baby. We had our 6th child, and so I moved everything into the house, and the kids will be taking a shower, and if we're singing in the bedroom, we would hear that. So the closet is the best choice for us. So I treated it and got it to sound, you know, controlled, and nothing's vibrating, or, and, you know, it's not giving me any craziness. So it's working pretty well for us.
Thanks, man. And so you were saying the 1176. What type of treatment are you using that for? Like a 4-to-1? What kind of release?
I will do a 2-to-1, and I'll use I can't remember I have to look it up. The one, not the Rev A. I love the Rev A on vocals, but it's the purple one. I think it is. It gives me the 2-to-1. The purple or the one with there's one of them that you can go down to a 2-to-1, and you can go to a almost like off attack, like to where it's barely even doing anything. And I'll set that to a fast release just to kind of catch some stuff. Mostly for helping the vocalist to have a smoother sound. I'll sometimes even put an LA2A, but then I won't commit to those compressions. I'll just use it to set the vocal up. I'll even throw the EMT 140 if the vocalist wants a little bit of verb. I'll use the Dimension D to add some smoothness, to kind of give them some love on that, to help them hear it. The Apollo is amazing. If you have it or haven't used it, I wish I had it 5-6 years ago when I was tracking and wanted to you know, to give the vocalist a little something more smooth instead of going straight into Pro Tools.
Thanks, Dave. And when it comes to the distance, how much distance should there be between the mouth and the singer and the mic?
I like to put the pop filter, I'd say about 6 inches away from the mic. And then,
how much is that? Like, because I'm not really into the.
I mean, I would have the pop filter, you know, say like right here against the mic, so it's.
All right.
Yeah, so pretty far back, and then I'll let them eat the pop filter if they want. But sometimes it's if I'm mostly producing the vocal when I'm recording it. There's parts where it's appropriate to go right up to the mic and give it a softer, more intimate, you know, type vibe. Or back, I try to help them work the mic. I'm listening for those things. That's one of the things I miss about a big studio, is being able to actually visually see the singer, not only use my ears, but to kind of watch them and listen, so that I can help them. You know, not everybody's a professional vocalist that's been taught how to work a mic. The Sound City movie, they addressed that. Dave Grohl, I think it was, said something about Stevie Nicks and how just perfect her microphone technique was, and how she just worked the mic. She performed it, and they barely had to use like compression and stuff, because she just did such an amazing job of, you know, controlling her vocal around the microphone. So, but
Thanks
most
so
of us
much.
aren't that talented today. We're spoiled.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, bro. We have this thing where part of my job is to work with the artist, and I'm like the guy with the bat beating people over the head, saying, "No, you're gonna learn mic technique."
Yeah.
And in the end, it's for their best, it's in their best interest. But it's like you have kids that you have to whoop to, you know, get them to do right type things. Like, why I gotta do that? Why don't y'all just do such and such? Which means we spend hours of our time fixing stuff. But yeah, I'm like the hardcore guy over here who beats everybody up and makes them do the good stuff like that. Hey, Chef, I keep calling you Chef. Chef, there you go. Okay, ask your question.
All right, with that SM7, is there any like treble frequencies like you normally? Obviously, it depends on like different artists or whatever. But there's certain frequencies. Are you boosting? Are you cutting with that particular mic? Are you having to boost a lot of high end? Because I have the same one, and it seems like I'm having to boost a lot of high end to really get it the vocal real airy. And like what part of Florida are you from? I'm from Florida also. I'm Pensacola.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, I'm in Central Florida. I'm in Orlando.
Okay, that's not
Right.
far. That's
Yeah,
not far
right.
away from Full Sail.
No, I'm about 20 minutes from Full Sail.
Okay. Yeah, I know where you're at.
Yeah, man. Winter Park, Full Sail, just down the street off I-4 and all that good stuff. But the frequencies, yeah, I mean, just like every answer, it kind of depends on the vocalist, depends on the song. But you're right. I mean, I'm not afraid to boost 20 dB of something. I mean, I don't know if that hurts anyone's feelings, but I mean, if I pull open the API or a high shelf, I may go from 10K up. You know, you got the Mog EQ, the airband is beautiful on an SM7. It's beautiful on anything. But yeah, I'm not afraid to boost the crap out of stuff and get it to sound the way that I want. You know, I'll listen for, you know, what it does to the other frequencies around it. But if it sounds good, it's good. Boost away. Use multiple EQs to boost. Whatever you got to do to make it sound the way you got it in your head, for sure. So the SM7, yeah, it's kind of a you gotta really drive it too.
Yeah.
The preamp, obviously, to get a good level. I think mine's all the way up when I do my tutorials. So, and then I'm using the gain and the API for the UAD. But it sounds good. So, yeah, man.
I was just about to ask you, are you using any of those inline like 25 dB booster things that you connect? I forget.
I'm not, but I probably should. I probably should. Yeah, I've heard about them. People, you know, but
yeah, because I have an SM7, and I was like, why am I getting so much noise? And I was cranking it.
Yeah, you'll have to hit me with an email where I can pick one up, because
they're like $125, and it's 25 dB of gain, clean gain.
Nice.
And people use them on the SM7 a lot. Have you ever that frequency boost, or there's a frequency thing on the SM7? Have you ever played with that?
When I worked up in Indianapolis, we used SM7 on kick drums. That's what the guy loved, and he got great sounds with it. And he did some work with Tooth and Nail and all kinds of people. That was his kick drum mic, and he messed with it. But I've not. I've just left it where it was when I bought it. The boring answer.
I ended up pushing that frequency, and on the SM7B, that I forget what frequency is. Brightness is basically what it comes down to. Clarity,
nice.
or whatever.
So it actually opens it up, boosts it a little bit more.
I ended up using it on the vocal. And I was like, I just stopped one day and just decided to actually take a look at the mic. Because I just plugged it in, hit the switch, or plugged it in at first and was using it. And one day I just stopped and took a look at the mic and was like, what is this? And saw it, and it was like, I went and read up on it, and I boosted it and was recording with it. And I was like, man, I'm loving this.
Man, I have to do it. I'm going to do it right now. Pull it over.
All right, one of the guys on Facebook, Jael, I hope I'm saying his name right, Jael P. Zodi. He says, he's in Cincinnati. He says, I'm watching you guys on my phone. Quick question. What do you think about using Ozone 5 to do your own mastering? And, David, how come you don't do your own mastering?
I do all of my own mastering. I do everything. I have had one song in the last 2 or 3 years go to a mastering engineer. It's not necessarily that I'm opposed to mastering engineers. I'm sure they could help me out, probably even communicate some things that, you know, would help me to become better. My clients just, whether they haven't wanted to pay more for mastering or we're just good at what when I mix, I'm mixing against references all the time. And so I'm getting my songs to sound like a finished product. And I'm so anal, OCD, about getting in and trying to find, am I okay between 25 hertz and 50 hertz, and then from 50 to 75, and then 75 to 100, and all the way through the frequency spectrum. I get in on it, and I just focus on it. And compared to my reference, do I have more or less low end? All the way through the song, is my mid-range completely trashed compared to whatever the reference is? So I have a crazy 2-bus, and I've talked about this a little bit. I mix into a crazy 2-bus. It kicks off with, and I need to do a new updated video on it, but I mix into the Studer. So all my tracks go to stereo buses, kind of like Pensado, all drums, all vocals, all music, all the effects, low end, high end, depending upon the song, whatever. And then within the tracks themselves, I could have a guitars bus, a piano, keys, multiple synths, could go strings, could go background vocals to their own stereo bus, stereo aux, and then that goes into, all of those feed to the submaster, my 2-bus. And on the top of that, I've got the Studer, giving a little movement of the needle, which then goes into sometimes the Pultec from UAD, because it's got it modeled the transformers and it does something sweet to it. Sometimes I go from there to the LA2A with no compression, just because I'm mixing completely in the box, and I like the way that it sounds whenever it hits the UAD LA2A, the gray. And then from there it goes to Slate's BBC, where I'm barely, again, doing any compression. It's kind of a boost to the upper mid-range. There's just a sweetness that happens. Those of you who have the Slate BBC know exactly what I'm talking about. And then from there I go into sometimes multiband compression by Waves, the L3, the linear phase multiband, and there's a preset on there that what's his name, Greg, did the series with that. Greg Wells recommends the multi-electro mastering. Multi-electro mastering is a great preset. Does some nice stuff, and then that may or may not be in the FabFilter Pro MB is great. I use the Ozone. It goes into an Ozone multiband. It's crazy. I told you, it's a crazy 2-bus. And then from there, I'm doing a little bit of gain reduction off the Pensado Specialty, the hip hop preset, but I bypass the limiter. After my multiband from Ozone, I'm going into using harmonic saturation or imaging from it as well. I'm going from there into matching EQ. And this is really critical for me because I didn't have years and years growing up underneath a top guy. So what I do is I use matching EQ. If you're not familiar with matching EQ, what it does is you can pull in a reference, you can hit play, and you can analyze that track, capture a little bit of it, hit stop, and give it a name, and then pull open your song, hit play, capture your frequency range, give that a name, and then you can actually say, match my frequencies to the reference. I'm probably botching that explanation, but then what I'll do, you can control the amount of the match. So it may have lifted your low end, and this is huge for me mixing from home and mixing on headphones. It may boost the low end, it may boost the top end, it may notch out 400, whatever it is. That helps me to get a better picture. Sometimes I'll leave it, sometimes I'll go to work and fix whatever those problem areas seem to be. And then from the matching EQ, I go into a limiter, the Ozone maximizer. And depending upon the client and I's conversation on loudness and that whole deal, then I'm going to be making the decisions for the final loudness levels. So it's a whole walkthrough. Probably would be good for me to do an updated video because it's more about the concepts of what I'm doing rather than the fact that I've got 10 plugins on my Submaster. You may look at it and be like, dang, what is this guy doing? But I tell people, if you like the final result, then don't hate the process. Look at Dan joined us, huh? Say hi, Dan.
Hey, what's up?
What's cracking, Dan?
Am I doing it right? I've actually never been in a Hangout before.
I feel special.
Or seen David Glenn face to face.
Yep, talked on the phone. Email.
Are you serious?
That's true.
Yeah, man.
What about
crazy.
Matthew
Like,
Weiss?
man, I worked with Matthew for like 2.5 years, and then we met up in Philly one time, and it was crazy, you know.
You know what, guys? I'm thinking all of you guys know each other. You're like you've worked out of the same studio or something, and you haven't even met Dave.
No, I mean, of course we talk all the time, you know, but yeah, it's awesome that
At
we're able
4
to
a.m.
do this kind
My
of stuff.
4 a.m.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
on
you're
the
4 a.m.
my 4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah, I'm emailing him at like 1 a.m. and he's responding, and then I realize he's 3 hours ahead. I'm like, damn, like I thought I was a night owl, you know?
Yeah.
What do you have coming out? Do you have anything coming out, Dan?
Yeah, man,
Any-
we got. I don't know. I missed the first 20 minutes. I was on the YouTube link for the rest of it though. And shout out to David, Glenn, and Matthew Weiss. Both you guys are awesome, and everyone, Pensado students. But yeah, I don't know if Matthew mentioned, but the mixing rap vocals, the advanced one that David mentioned with Snoop Dogg, Juicy J, Murs, that should be dropping any month. I encourage all of you to bug Matthew Weiss as much as possible to get it out. And yeah.
Sorry, somebody's just bringing me Starbucks. I feel special now.
Mine's gone, and I'm like depressed now. I saved it too.
The that quiz tones. Some people don't know about the quiz tones. So will you tell a little bit? You guys tell it. Well, first, David, do you even use his quiz tone product?
Come on, man. I knew about quiz tones probably right after Matthew figured it out. I'm an app freak. I'm online all the time. And yeah, I used it. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. It was fun. It made me realize, it'll humble you. If you do it, you'll realize how much you suck. And yeah, it helps, man. I use it every now and then. I'll pull it up again. I think he's working on an update. He can probably.
Yeah.
What is?
Yeah. So QuizTone.
Yeah.
It's an ear training app for audio engineers, producers, musicians, but it's focused on frequencies and changes in gain. We're working on compression quizzes, even though it's been in the works for like a year. And yeah, we have a redesign coming out this summer that it's really sweet. I'm super excited to share with you guys. But yeah.
I knew quiz tones worked when one of my partners Wayne Cooey, producer, he would yell out, "Hey, you need to dip around 1K," and he'd sit there and play with quiz tones and get closer and closer to the frequency, and I'd go dip it and say, "No shit," and he could not do that, and he kept doing it. I was like, "Man, is this a trick or something?" And he said, "Man, I'm using quiz tones." He said it was your product.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I always love hearing that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, even when I was making the quizzes and kind of testing it, I would test it, tweak it, test it, tweak it. I knew it worked because 3 weeks later I was just listening differently. I was hearing things differently, and so I get the question all the time, or I see it on forums or Facebook threads where it's like, does it work, or whatever, and I can guarantee people if they use it for a little bit each week or every day, it's going to work, So
it was Wayne's little video game. We're nerds, so that was his little video game that he was playing in the studio all the time.
Nice.
The only one I ever knew by heart was the 50 hertz.
You got that one down, huh? All right, I have. Oh, any more info, Dan? You want to give out about what you got going on before I ask David this question?
Yeah. So
What you got?
So Matthew's mixing rap vocals 2 coming out, QuizTones update coming out, and man, just David, Glenn, Matt, Ian Vargo, all crushing it on the YouTube channel, and tons of stuff coming from them, which I couldn't be more excited about. And we also have a huge giveaway on the blog right now. We're giving away Ozone 5, BFD3, drum samples, tutorials, basically just everything. We're just giving it all away. And there's tons of different options for you can, get like 10 entries in, depending on how much you want to share it around, things like that. So definitely check that out.
I'm dying to hear David's to get this vocal stuff David has coming out, because vocals keeps being this. It's like everybody has issues with vocals, or it's vocals and mastering, and then the kick bass relationship. That I just keep hearing that stuff, and so I'm glad he's coming out with this vocal stuff. Vladdy, before I ask, what was your question?
All right. So since you guys have been talking about quiz tones, that was actually before Dan came in. So David, do you have like a blacklist of frequencies you really, really don't like, and you look around for them like the boxiness in the kicks, something like that?
You know, excuse me. I've got just kind of the natural, you know, on a kick, go to 500 and listen, and then pull it out. You know, stuff like that. I'll listen for, you know, boosting 1K on a vocalist, you know, with a mid to wide bell, pulling down a little bit at 7 or 800 so that 1K is emphasized rather than boosting more at 1K, pulling down 2K a little bit. I hate, with a passion, harsh frequencies, 3 to 5K. I will go in and manually reduce S's. I'll DS on top of that if I need to, because I boost so much darn top end on a vocal sometimes. I cut 3 to 5K depending upon the vocal, the reference track I'm using, and just taste to what I'm working on. That'll be 3 to 5K can get kind of harsh on everything overall. Individual instruments, I'm really cautious from 3 to 5K. I'm cautious. My mixes used to be too bright all the time. I just everything was bright, and now it's kind of reversed. I'm more moderate in the high end, top end, and I've got I like to think I have a solid low end. I have a low cut high pass filter on every single track in my mix, and nothing below 25-30 is in the mix, no matter what. Even if I don't, like, I'm so paranoid about it, I'll have sometimes multiple low cut filters on a vocal just to make sure. I'm so paranoid about it. But then even on my two bus, my first plug-in on my two bus, I said was a Studer. Now it's the FabFilter Pro Q in mid-side mode, because I don't want anything below, often, not all the time, but I don't want anything below 75 or so on the sides. I like to control that, and then I won't let anything in the middle be below 25-30. Sometimes 50, just depends on the song. Sometimes 70. I mean, it all depends, but for the most part, it's 25 hertz, 35 hertz is a low cut down the middle, and then on the sides I'll cut anything from 50 and above. Just depends on the song.
And what about the low mids, like the low mid range?
I love 200. And I found that as I cleaned up my top end and I boosted my low end, then all of a sudden my low mids were terrible. And so 200, 400, I mentally I cringe at the thought of 300 to 500 hertz, but they're vital in so many elements. You can't just get rid of them. You can't just, you get that smiley face. I'm not a big fan of the smiley EQ necessarily. So yeah, I just listen and see how the mid-range reacts to the other elements in the song, and try to do the best I can to like I said earlier, multiband compression. It's not just for vocals. It's not just for the master bus for me. I'm looking at multiband compression on acoustic guitars. I'm using multiband for my side chaining for kick and bass, the FabFilter Pro MB. I'm boosting now with the FabFilter Pro MB for a high shelf above 10K, 20K. I'm pushing that up 5, 10, 20 dB. Sounds insane. But then I'll set compression with the multiband so that if anything gets above a certain threshold, it'll smack it down and control the top end. It won't let it get too sizzly or harsh. So that's kind of an overview of some of the frequencies I'm paying attention to.
Thanks.
Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, you did.
Great. Awesome. Cool, man.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
And I just thought about it, the stuff you guys have coming out in Pensado students. I don't know how we would do it, but if there's anywhere where we could figure out I don't know if it should be a competition or some type of raffle off thing. You know, like who the first 20 who click like can get such and such. You know, like we actually have one piece of hardware that's supposed to be given out that we're slack on. We need to get it going, but there's supposed to be a competition for a piece of hardware to be given out in Pensado students. But any product where you guys could give it away, I don't even know how. See, I'm not good at that type of stuff where you set up some whatever and you roll the dice and whoever gets the product free. But yeah, you guys should get with Bill and Gordon.
Cool.
If you guys ever want to do something like that where you get crazy and want to have the Pensadians all scrounging for your tools fighting each other.
That's awesome. We appreciate the support. Dan is the best person I know. I'm learning a lot from him and some of the other guys that do this. He's a beast, man. I mean, he posted. We've got Matthew. Some of my stuff is #1 on Google searches, and I'm just like blown away by that. Even some of the other guys that do this full time are blown away by his. Was it the phrase that I saw was Jedi SEO skills? Dan's Jedi SEO skills. So he's the man for that. He's definitely a beast when it comes to.
He came in and gave several quiz tones out, and it was like, what is this? And it was like, holy shit! And that was like the coolest, thing when he did that.
Man, you guys are kind. But yeah, we'll always give away. We always have a Pensado students discount code too for whenever we launch a tutorial. So we'll definitely hook up a discount code, and then any kind of giveaway stuff that we can do would be awesome. And yeah, I just want to add real quick, shout out to Eric Tarr as well. He's actually the first guy on the YouTube channel, man, and he teaches at I think I don't know, Belmont some university, but he's a really good teacher, man, and he's been at it for a minute on the YouTube channel. So shout out to him. And yeah, anything, man, anything we can do to do some giveaways and stuff for Pensado students. I love that group, man. And thank you, man, for all that you do to organize all this stuff, and bring everyone together. It's cool.
I have you guys back, bro. Somebody has to get in here and make all, we have so much good stuff going on. Somebody's got to put forth the effort.
Yeah, man. I know everyone appreciates it for sure.
Big time, absolutely.
All
and
right.
as the group grows, it gets crazy sometimes. But yeah, shout out to you guys. I mean, we're approaching 12,000 now, so it gets pretty crazy on your end, I'm sure. So thanks for all the hard work you do with everything, and I know we all appreciate it. So get rid of the.
I have trouble receiving praise, so I'm gonna move right along.
There he goes.
Okay, I got a question for you. Wait, Dan, how much do you mix? Do you mix also or no? Because I know you do the coding.
Yeah, I was mixing for a while and making beats and stuff like that, and I'll still dabble around and make. I like the drums. I'm a drummer, so it's like I like making beats and kind of passing those off to people who are a lot better at, for synths and bass and stuff like that. But lately, it's mostly been the web grind, trying to grow the pro audio files, quiz tones, tutorials, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. All right. So, low ratio compression. What is the lowest that you've actually used, David?
Two to 1 on the UAD 1176 that they digitally allowed it to happen. I don't know that I didn't come from a background with tape and analog, this and that. I'm 100% in the box. So that's all I know is that. Yeah, it's 2 to 1. And
so you've never gone lower than 2 to 1?
Oh, you know what? Slate, the VBC, the rack, I use 1.5 on my drum bus. The Slate gray, FG gray, is that what it is? Yeah, it's a gray, the top one on the rack. That's no, FG red. The FG red, I use it at 1.5 on my drum bus, and then I'll smash that sometimes at 1.5 and then blend in the mix knob depending upon song, vibe, whatever. Sometimes I'll smash it, leave it at 100%, but then use a transient designer on the back end of it to put a little bit more of the punch back in, the smack.
It took me years before before I stopped and thought about it. And it was like, hey, this thing goes down like the comp for the stock compressor for Pro Tools, a Digi comp goes down to less than 1.1.
Yep, sure does.
And I was sitting there thinking, okay, they put this thing on here for a reason.
Yeah.
It does that. It has that ability for a reason. And I started compressing at 1.1 to 1, and I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear a change, but I did see reduction. And so I just played with it, and I take the threshold all the way down to the floor.
Yeah,
this
man.
is a master fader, bro.
Yeah.
But low rate, so low ratio compression. So you do use it. What do you notice about low? What are things that you notice about low ratio compression?
That's a great question, man. I don't know that I have a good answer for you. Like I told Matthew at the beginning, I'm more of a feel and taste and just listening, and you know, I know a good bit about the technical side of what we do, and you know, I'm no slouch, but
no. What do you notice about the feel?
I think that it helps to you know, the basics of it. It helps it to keep transients, keep the dynamic, but control it a little bit. I think that's a beautiful thing of how I'm using the FabFilter Pro MB is I'm using low ratios on that. So I'm not killing it. I'm not smacking things down. What I do is I use multiple low ratios, and then if I need to smash something, I'll use a limiter. I'll use the Isotope Nectar 2 limiter or an L2, L3, and that's where I'll just drop the hammer and smash something if I want that effect. But for the most part, I prefer low ratios in stages.
Yep. I asked because I would constantly hear people talk about hugging the mix, hugging the mix, and it'd be like 2 to 1. They'd always say throw the SSL on, and I would say, why does it have to be an SSL? And the SSL comps that I would see had the lowest of 2 to 1.
2 to 1. How about Slate making it 1.5 for us?
Yeah, and so exactly. And so when people would talk about this hug sound, some of the stuff I would notice certain mixes sounded, they felt like they were just open and free and things were jumping. And then some things actually felt there was, it's like you were in a cage, a soft, I don't know, like a balloon or something, like things only went so far and it was moved, it was, I don't even know how to, I would describe it, I guess, as the hug. But
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what I started doing on the Master Fader was the low, like, it would be, bro, I'm telling you, like 1.2 to 1. 1.1 to 1, and you might, whatever it is, I might see, say, 12 dB of reduction, but it wouldn't sound like it.
Sure, yeah.
Because I don't know how to explain it.
But you miss it if you bypass it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like some of the plugins, some of the compressors, when I would do it, would bring up, say I would hear the low end or low mids get a little bit too much, so I would put an EQ before, and and after I do the compression and I hear this stuff, I would just with the EQ before the compressor, after the compression is going, I would reduce those frequencies, and the stuff just, I would sit in my car and I would stack these. I would sit in my car or my truck, whatever, and it sounded like, or it felt like you said, it felt like everything was contained a little bit, but
Sure.
still alive.
Yeah.
And so when I hear people say that they hit their master bus and it's pumping, all I can think is, why aren't you lowering the ratio?
For sure.
Get a lower ratio. But what else do you do with low ratio compression that you can think, if you can think of off the top of the head real quick?
I hit for peaks with low ratio compression, peak limiting with an 1176 on my vocal. It's kind of the first thing the first layer of compression is a low ratio, just smacks it. 3, 5, 7 dB of reduction, just depends.
How low a ratio are you talking?
1.5 with the slate. I use the slate on there. The thing, I think the slate is the one that I actually, now I'm using the UAD, the mono version of the Fairchild. It was 660. Okay. Probably getting that wrong. 660, 670.
Whichever, yeah.
So I'm dropping that down, and then we're talking about low ratios, but the other thing, you can almost imitate low ratios by taking the wet dry knob and smashing it all the way back so it's open, it's dry, and then just kind of blending in a 2-to-1, and you can kind of get the. But yeah, I'm a fan of 1-to-5. I haven't used 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, 1-to-3 because I stopped using the Digi a long time ago. Not because it was bad, but just had these other plugins and just started using them and getting comfortable with them.
Now you said you'd say use 1.5-to-1 and use it as a limiter, right?
So I say limiter, but a peak limiter. So if something gets above a certain threshold, it doesn't let it. Not even the right way to express it. It's
fastest attack, fastest release.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
And what does it do? Is it transparent?
I think so. Yeah, I think it helps. I'm using clip gain more now than anything. I'm going in, and I think the next video in the works that's going to be released for me is a clip gain video of how I'm using it, and I think it's gonna. Some people, I may get some hate mail from it, or I may get some crazy. It's going to go one way or another because I haven't seen it done this way, and I'm really excited about it. I explained it to Matthew at the beginning, and he was like, "That's amazing." So hopefully it sounds amazing, and then we'll all go grab a beer.
I'm glad you said that you use the low ratio as a limiter because we do that around here. Like
cool.
It's like I'll do that on vocals, and I don't know, bruh. It's fastest attack, fastest release as a limiter, and it just you shave off the upper jumping audio, whatever, and it's you don't even necessarily hear it. You might feel it stop hitting you, but I don't.
Yeah. Vocals, acoustic guitars, when you got like a percussive acoustic and you're really trying to get that, I use it on there. Hand percussion, like Matthew brought up earlier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
cool, man.
What about slow release? Do you ever use a real slow release with low ratio?
Yeah, that's something I learned. I mentioned Salvo earlier from Nashville, and on his website, I believe it's salvomix.com, but if you Google Neo Salvo, Paul Salveson, he's got a website, and he's got from like however many years ago, he was attempting to start a blog, and he put up his techniques for kick, bass, snare, EQ, compression for all of those elements, and one of the things he mentioned was how you would be surprised if you pulled open an 1176 on a kick and you played with the attack and release to slow the release or to speed up the attack. We think all the time, oh, we want the transient to come through on the kick. Well, pull it up and hit it fast and see what it sounds like, and you'd probably be surprised that you don't leave the attack all the way slow all the time. I'd say most of the time mine is medium to quick on the attack to kind of hit it and control it. But he's got that's when I really started playing with release, was when I read his blog, and he's a mastermind, man. He's incredible. I've had the chance to talk to him on the phone a few times, and he's just super kind, and he gives secrets away like it's nothing. Hit him up on Twitter. I'm gonna cause his Twitter to crash, but he's just a beast when it comes to this stuff, man. He's one of the old guys, so don't tell him I said old guy, but yeah, he's got some awesome stuff on his website. I think it's salvomix.com, but then even like the proaudiofiles.com, that blog, like I said earlier, before I started actually contributing, it was Sato's Place, the proaudiofiles.com, Graham at the Recording Revolution. I love his work. He's always got new stuff coming out. And I saw you actually repost quite a bit of his stuff. That's cool.
Yep.
And yeah, man, so I'm a nut to learn more, and it's out there. If you want to learn it and you've got the drive and determination, there's no excuse. You don't have to rack up. I'm not saying don't go to Full Sail or wherever, but I live down the street from there. I didn't do it, and pretty much everybody I know that came from Full Sail is subscribed to my mailing list and asks me questions all the time. How are you doing what you're doing? And I don't have the proper education of a degree, so to speak. And I don't have 6 figures of debt either.
Can I pop in real quick?
Yeah.
Of course, bro.
I just wanted to say that's sort of like a hidden goal of mine with the Pro Audio Files is, I mean, we've been at it for like three and a half years or so, but only the last year, I mean, we've had like a YouTube channel and stuff like that. But man, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, like I want to have an archive of articles and videos from guys like David and Matthew and Ian and Eric Tarr and Mark Marshall, where you don't have to go to school. And I know there's tons of resources. You can just search Google, but it's like a sort of goal of mine is to have just a central hub where
For sure.
it's cleanly organized, it's readable, it's very high quality, it's browsable, so you can choose your topic and find everything easily, cataloged, and so I just wanted to put that out into the universe as sort of my hope for the future.
That would be awesome, bro.
I'll add to that. I was just talking to a producer, tracking engineer out of Chicago, and Joey. He's part of the group, so shout out to Joey.
Joey Sturgis?
Joey Fernandez.
Okay.
And you guys may have seen his profile picture is a dog. His little yeah. give him a hard time about that. But we were just talking, and something that he mentioned to me about after watching my first product, my first training course, was, man, these kids, they want to learn, but 6 figures of debt, 50 grand debt, 20 debt, like 20 grand in debt is even ridiculous. And I know guys that have 150, whatever the max is, of debt to go to school, and maybe total up all of the books and money I spent on training courses, and you're probably at 10 over time. You can't learn it all at once anyway, so why are you going to pay that much money to go for 1 year or 2 years of a degree when you're not even going to understand chapter 1 for the first 2 to 5 years of your career, which is a beautiful thing. But you have to be driven, you have to be determined to learn, and you have to be patient with the process. I'm just now getting to the point, I still don't even I'm using multiband compression, and I'm learning it, and I'm getting better at it, but I use it every single day. And I'm just learning it. Whereas even compression tones, like what the difference between an LA2 versus an 1176 versus a Fairchild, I'm just learning that stuff. My ear is just now, and I started recording on Cubase on a PC when I was 12, 13 years old, where you would go and record 8 tracks and then dupe it down, record 7, dupe it down to the 8th, and then, the whole deal. So 15, 16, 17 years now, I've been making music, and I'm just now starting to hear the difference in compression and that kind of stuff. So it's a long process. If you've heard of Seth Godin in the business world, Seth Godin, just Google him, Seth, and you'll find it. Amazing stuff there. That's a whole nother Google Hangout, is the business side of things, because you can't just be a great engineer or a great mixing engineer anymore. You have to know business. But he talks about the dip. He's got a book called The Dip. And if you want to be in this business, probably don't want to read that book. But if you do, and you're determined enough, read the book, and you'll kind of be able to shave a few years off. Sites like the ProAudioFiles.com are going to shave years and years off. They did for me, and I was already in it. I was already mixing records, getting paid professionally to do this for people. Yeah, so I'm on a rant, but
I'll echo what Dave said, but just to add on, I went to music school, and I know tons of other people from there and who went there, and so I can kind of tell you right off the bat, the only thing you're losing is basically in-person networking and hands-on experience touching a console with somebody who knows what they're doing over your shoulder. So like Dave said, you buy every tutorial, read and watch as much as you can. I'd be shocked if you could even get past $10,000 worth of material. So you get all that, and then just get creative to fill in the gaps in your knowledge. As far as if you need something clarified, David and Matthew, first of all, reply to people's emails, and just are more than open to having conversations with you. But we're also considering offering one-on-one private lessons. So hopefully from the Pro Audio Files, you can basically book a 1 or 2 hour lesson with any of our contributors, and we'll do screen sharing. You can broadcast sessions, figure out a clean way to do that, and at that point, it's you have a personal trainer right there for people are taking on 6-figure debt, and it's if you can get creative around it, you can make it work.
For sure.
You can do that right now with Google Hangouts, bro.
Yeah, they have
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Because I brought it up in Pensado students, and there was a ton of great links dropped in there with you can have like studio mode or whatever too, which basically I think I looked into it. It basically there's no auto gain. You get stereo. It basically takes off, kind of like the voice function. So there's definitely ways to do it.
And something I just wrote about with the success of the Pro Audio Files and great advice from Dan. I've posted a couple articles. Something I just wrote about was live streaming to your clients using Nicecast. If you go to davidglennrecording.com, it's like the second or third article there. And Nicecast, I think it's only like $50, but it's free for an hour of stream. You can, because us using Pro Tools, especially if you're not on Pro Tools 11, you're on 10 or below, you're gonna have some CPU issues. If you have an iPad or you want to rely on Nicecast to stream it for you, it's more CPU efficient, and then you can video chat from your iPad or your phone, and they can hear a live real-time stream of your Pro Tools session. Go check it out. It's on my site. You can check it out, davidglennrecording.com, and then there's a marketing strategies thing there, and then that'll link over to the Pro Audio Files, but there's also one for live streaming, and it's great for production, for writing, for all of it, and it's like 2-second delay, 3-second tops, if you have a decent internet connection, which most of us do nowadays. If you're on this Hangout, you'd be able to rock it pretty smoothly. All kinds of great stuff, man. I'm sure technology is going to be more and more in our favor for collaboration over the web months from now. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I tell people all the time, one of the smartest things you can do is to rent studio time and have the guy teach you. I mean, just imagine if a guy contacted you and asked you what your rate is, and then he says, okay, I want you to show me compression. Just teach me compression, and he buys a block of whatever from you, and he wants you to show him compression. So you're sitting there teaching this guy how to compress, and you're getting paid for it. Cake, like that's. Well, I can't necessarily
even better, even better than that. So you don't have to be one-on-one. Go by Matthew Weiss's Learn Compression because it's insane. I watched it 2 or 3 times, and I'm telling you, man, I give a plug for him because he did an incredible job on that. And that's about when I started learning to hear the differences in the compressors, the multiple compressors, is really starting to feel, the emotion and the vibe of what the compression was doing rather than just turning knobs and guessing and hoping or pulling up. I'm going to do a tutorial here in the next couple days where I reverse engineer presets. I learned a lot from pulling up the Waves SSL and hitting a crystalloid algae preset and trying to figure out what the heck is he doing here. Holy crap, he's boosting 15 dB at 10K on a kick drum, or gating the crap out of it, or whatever. And there's so much you can learn from these companies. Put so much time into these presets, and if you've got moderate record levels, I'd say, and don't record too hot, those presets are going to get you pretty close in the ballpark, and you can tweak. And for years I mixed based off of presets and tweaking to taste, and I'd say guys like Matthew and Dave Pensado have shed years off of the learning curve for things like compression and EQ.
Hey Steve, unmute your mic real quick. Now, Dave, Steve says he's about 6 hours from you, and he needs help.
Oh,
Steve.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find, somebody around me. There ain't really a whole lot of studios at all up here in Northwest Florida. Roy Jones Jr., he had a studio here in town, but it's since been closed down. And, there's studios in Atlanta. I've gone to the Zone studio, which Billy Hume runs. I think he's actually opened up another studio. I've just been trying to find somebody here in Florida. It seems like everybody's either England, West Coast, and New York, but I haven't really been able to connect with anybody from Florida.
Oh man, yeah, I'd say Central Florida is packed full of people. It's probably oversaturated because of Full Sail, which isn't a bad thing. There's no smack to Full Sail. There's just because I say don't go to Full Sail doesn't mean you shouldn't go to Full Sail, I guess. But yeah, there's people all over Central Florida. Man, send me an email, david@davidglennrecording.com. Man, I'm down to talk, chat, get to know you, whatever.
Steve, I will get on Google. I will look up his address. I want you to show up on David's doorstep and say, "My aunt sent you."
Yeah.
Okay?
Come with a cup of coffee.
Have it. Tell him a Pensadian has to help a Pensadian, and
yeah.
they will do the same thing to Dan.
You give
Yeah,
me
man, I need it because I got a buddy of mine. He's my production partner. I mean, he also writes music, and he's really good, man. And I mean, we're not out trying to get like signed to any labels or anything, but I'm almost certain if anybody ever heard him, he really would. I mean, he really is that good.
cool,
And
man.
I just feel like sometimes that my mixing skills just kind of, aren't really up to par. It's kind of like the weak link in the chain. And both of us, we work hand in hand. He does production, I do the mixing, record vocals. He's vocalist, obviously. And I mean, he has a really good voice. I mean, he sounds like legit. Like people listen to him, like, man, you sound like you should be on the radio. Why isn't this stuff on the radio? But I'm just a real big stickler with sound quality, and it just has to be right. I don't want to give. I was told a long time ago, you never want to give anybody any reason to criticize your music. And I'm not the type of person just to put stuff all over Facebook, and if it's not right, it's not right. And I don't want somebody to listen to something and say, oh, that sounds like crap. Or the other day you singing.
No, do we lose him?
Got books and books and binders full of music ready to go, but I'm just trying to get that sound quality up to par.
Cool, man. Yeah, send me an email. Any questions you ever have, and then if you haven't already, theproaudiofiles.com and youtube.com/theproaudiofiles is, I mean, an insane amount of stuff there for sure. But yeah, by all means.
To Matt a few times.
Cool.
Most of the tutorials on Ken Lewis, his site. I got most of his stuff, which has helped a lot. And I'm just trying to get my gear built back up. I went to medical school, and that cost crazy, so I had to sell my first studio, which it killed me to do. But now we're kind of building back up, and we're almost ready to go. Been
there, man, for sure.
And do you see over there on the side in the chat what Dan put in there for you? The Pensado students, members in Florida.
Yeah, you can, and to everyone, like if you want to meet up, like there's so many like professionals too that are hanging out with Pensado students. If you do that search on the search bar on Facebook, just do people of Pensado students who live in any state, and it'll just show you all the group members who are in that state. And shit, I mean, you can, like I said, the main thing people lose out on when they don't go to school maybe is networking, and that's a great way to make up for it, just like hit up those people and just kick it at their studio or whatever, help out, and just absorb whatever you can with them, be a sponge.
To that point, being proactive, because I just met Graham from the recordingrevolution.com. He came over here I guess he's in Tampa, but he came to a studio here, a buddy of mine that I know, and I went, and he's just an open book, man. Most of us are. I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't asked questions and got to where. And still, I bug Dan via email probably every couple hours. Hey, man, what'd you do here? I've Googled it, but it's not coming out the way. And most people in the world are pretty sweet. They're pretty nice, and they're more than willing, despite what you may think or hear.
Yep. All right. Normally when people kept telling me, okay, when I was starting out, listen to these frequencies, right? So next thing you know, I'm listening to Michael Jackson, and the transients are sweet. Mine are killing me. So, question: do you actually transient mix? You're a producer, so I'm actually talking production, everything.
Yep.
How much are you paying attention to what's transient, what's not transient, and mixing of all that?
Kind of like what I said about, microphone placement. If I'm like an acoustic guitar and I know that in the song I want a percussive acoustic, I'm probably not going to mic the sound hole. I'm going to mic above and get more of the percussiveness. Or I may, some guys don't, off subject a little bit, but some guys are like playing acoustic guitar, and when you go, I bought a Taylor a few years back, and I played like 30 of them, 50 of them before I found the one, and they were all the same model. But it sounded good to my ear. So throw a mic up to your ear and get the sound that you want. That's what the mic's going to hear, what you hear. So something like that. I use a lot of transient designers, probably too much. Good or bad.
What exactly are you doing with the transient designers? What's the...
On a kick, I'm sucking the crap out of the sustain, boosting the attack. I'm using the Alloy 2 from Isotope, the multi-band transient designer. So you can split it and have the low end. I'll boost the attack on the low end, suck the sustain out to get that tight punchy kick that kind of hits you and leaves, kicks you in the rear while you're driving down the road. I'll pull the sustain out of the mids, maybe even the attack out of the mids of a kick, but then boost the 2 to 5K on a kick. Boost, sustain, who knows? Just depends on the kick, the sound. I've used it on vocals to give a little bit more of a articulation to the vocal. Sometimes on the top end, I'll use a little bit of I'm talking like a little bit. Acoustic guitars, percussive elements. You got to be careful because you just like anything, you can overdo it, and you can have a mix. It's like it's like smacking you in the face. Almost too dynamic, too transient, if that's even possible in our line of work. But I use them all the time. Pulling sustain out, adding sustain to certain elements, just depends.
What are some things that you could think of? I don't care which stage, yep. Songwriting, production, mixing, working with a vocalist. What comes to mind when bringing emotion in, like whether it's mixing, producing, some things that you do to bring emotion into the music song.
I think it comes with committing to sounds. I think that's a kind of a lost art. With the home studio, we've got record it dry, and then from there, there's so many options. I think by I'll talk about setting a vibe for a vocalist, dimming the lights. You got your lava lamp or your incense. I wrote a blog post a long time ago about throat coat, making sure that that's a big deal. If the vocalist has got a smooth, flow coming out, then they can give a gentle, more emotional performance if they're not stressed about what's happening in their throat, or things are too bright in the studio and it's a song about losing your dad, or whatever that may be. Setting the vibe, setting the mood. The key of the song plays huge into emotions, and how you layer instruments depending upon the key of the song or what the message is. A lot of guys who nuts about music theory probably could explain that better than me, but there's that. There's it's hard in a home studio to give it's hard to get comfortable in a home studio for me. I was spoiled. I had nice studios, great environments to work in, and then guys who don't have that exposure dream of that, to go into a big studio and be able to work and be free to create and collaborate and all those kinds of things. I think whatever you can do to create a vibe in your environment is huge to the music making process, for things to be musical and have emotion and have taste and color and all that stuff, that all the ways we like to explain it. I think that's huge for it, more than the type of guitar you're playing or the mic you're using. Just the vibe and the experience of writing or making that song. I hate cover songs, so there's a place for it, and I get that, but I like on the blog, on the proaudiofiles.com, the YouTube channel, I'm releasing session files for a song called Thread by my buddy Harry Gettings, really good friend of mine. He may be watching this. Just love the guy to death, and he went through some serious crap, and he wrote like 12 songs expressing himself one night for the song Thread. Many of you have mixed it and sent it to me, and you guys are killing it. But it's just emotional, man. And he didn't put a pop filter up. He used a MIDI keyboard. He didn't do anything right other than he had a U87, which is great. But but the song is just beautiful, and I love that it was pure and it was true emotion. But he had some drinks. He was there at the studio by himself. He was going through something, and he expressed himself. And the song is just awesome. And it would have sucked if I would have said, oh, man, well, let's come back the next morning, 8 a.m., and get you some tea and dim the lights and, whatever, to get the perfect recording. The song wouldn't have been what it is if we would have tried to create that. So letting it be, doing what you can to get out of the way and let things kind of happen is I think good advice for that. I said a lot, but
no, that's good, bro. When you come across an artist who say they're reading the lyrics, say you write the lyrics, or they write the lyrics, but it's obvious when they're performing these lyrics that they're not performing the feel, the emotion of the lyric.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you can think of that you would do to help them actually get into the emotion of whatever they're supposed to?
That's a great question, man. When I'm producing, and pretty much any time I've engineered, I've respectfully chimed in and opened my mouth and become the producer. If you wrote it, where were you when you wrote it? What were you going through? What are you feeling? Like, try to pull that emotion out of them. They may not want to face it, but that's where the best performance is going to come from. If they wrote it just to write it, and those don't make the best songs, I don't think. But if you're writing it because you saw a movie, well, think about what that movie gave you. I use a notebook a lot, or any cheesy chick flick. I'm a softie. I'm a softie, so I dig that stuff. But by all means, think about it, man. Put yourself in those situations. Try to feel that, and those are the best performances when you can bring that out in an artist.
Is there anybody else that has an answer or a question about that before we move on? Because that's actually a huge thing.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that.
Go ahead.
I mean, like what he was saying, I've recorded a lot of people where like they don't really have any emotion. Like you were talking about, they'll have it written on their phone or written on a piece of paper, and it sounds like they're reading it off a piece of paper. And it's like, come on, man, you got to give me something. Liven it up. Do some jumping jacks. Run around the block. Do something. Come back in here and get live. And I'm like, I mean, like, look at Jay-Z. Excuse me. If you ever watch Jay-Z in an interview, he's quiet, he's reserved, but whenever you listen to his music, he's animated. I mean, it's basically him with the volume turned way up. And then a lot of people are just like, they don't have emotion. And to me, that just comes over, a lot of like somebody like Lil Wayne. You listen to him record. I mean, he's in the booth just playing. He sounds like he's being playful. He's just not real quiet, and I don't know. It has that feel that comes across, and to me, that's like a big thing between somebody that's really honed their craft and somebody that's just like, oh, I want a CD for the street.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to see Lil Wayne record a song talking about a child that he just lost and see how well he performs that, because that would be that's one of those emotional. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, Lil Wayne, let's see what happens on this one. Okay, I got one. Sounds that you push in the background. What are you using? What do you use the background sounds for? What are you trying to do with them?
It could be different things. If an artist is fighting me on having something in the mix that I don't want in the mix, or they've layered 20 different instruments, I'm using it for texture. I guess it just depends. One of my favorite things to do is to push things back with like a ginormous hall setting, like a modulated reverb. I love modulated reverbs. I hate chorus for whatever reason, except on a little bit on a lead vocal, but I always hear chorus and I think like 80s guitars, and that just doesn't do it for me. But I think modulated trails where it detunes over time. I like that kind of stuff. I probably need to get better at using reverb, but I don't hear a whole lot of reverb on modern records, at least the stuff that I'm working in. I hear things bright and punchy and clear and in your face. Where I may use, being a guitar player, I do swells. I played in church growing up, and swells, the Hillsong, and you guys know that kind of stuff. But big delays, U2 is probably a good way to explain that, using delays to put things in a space, stereo delays, ping pongs. I use delays more than I use reverb. When I do use reverb, it's more automating reverb swells so that things come in and feel like they're getting bigger or deeper. Or I use a lot, actually something that might apply to your question would be on drums. sometimes I just did a video on how to create a drum room using whether it's Ocean Way or even just Reverb or whatever. Sometimes I'll have a drum room that I'll create with a plugin, but I'll only turn it on at the chorus. Or I'll turn it off at the chorus, because if you think about it, I can't remember what episode it was, but Pensado's Place, they had a guy from Texas. I wish I remembered his name. Loved his records, loved his work. But he talked about how, if you think about it, reverb pushes things back. So if you turn the reverb off at the chorus, the drums get punchier and in your face. So depending on the vibe, depending on the song, I do it both ways. But I do a lot of automation, almost too much. For talk about rates and what we get paid to do this, but I put a lot of time into automating things and getting creative with reverbs and delays and multiple tracks, that kind of stuff. It's probably not answering your question that great about reverb. I use pre-delay a lot to help separate sounds from reverb so that it still sounds clear, but it has a space. We talked about the lead vocal. If it's poorly recorded, I'll throw that in a space and make it the sound. I'll try to reshape the sound of the vocal to be in the specific room for vibe and character. A lot of indie records I do, I use rooms rather than big crazy reverbs. I'll use like room sounds, and I'll have multiple rooms. It's been talked about on Pensado's Place. I talk about that a lot. I mean, I swear they shaved 15 years off my learning curve. But talk about multiple chambers. And having different EQ settings on those, and then even automating the EQ so that the reverb goes from being, far, deep, and wide, and then it transitions almost like a panning effect, losing top end or gaining top end so that it gets brighter and bigger. I love mixing. I love the creative element. We could talk for days about automation and techniques that I use to try to create space, and probably need to do a training course on only effects.
Right. I wasn't just limiting it to effects like anything you add low level to create a vibe, like swinging hi-hats, low volume that you barely hear, or something phase.
Yeah,
well, that's
sure.
an effect. Hold on. I done went right back to an effect. I almost said a phase to but what else, like besides like ghost notes or low levels? Can you think of anything else low level stuff? Not effects, but other low level stuff that you do to move people. Low volume stuff to move people.
Yeah, all the time I use really short slap delays. I don't even know that it would be considered a slap delay on hi-hats to go from an 8th to a 16th groove, or panned delays, so that if you've got the hi-hat here, pulling in a slap delay on the right side just a little bit so that it kind of shifts and it gets a certain feel to it. If you've got one, I hate it when someone sends me one guitar part, or they send me the same guitar part doubled or tripled, but it's the same exact thing. I like having one guitar part on the left and another part that does something different or sounds different on the other side. But if I'm only sent one guitar, what I'll do is I'll throw it left, and then I'll put a slap delay and bring that in so you get the impression of two guitars. It gives it that vibe. Spatial stuff. I talked about the 35 milliseconds on the left on a stereo delay, 35 on the right, and then putting the left at 0%, the right at 100%. That's a cool trick. Do that on a track, bring that in, you'll be like, oh man, that's pretty sweet. Mid-side techniques, all kinds of stuff for space and vibe.
That was one of my questions, is what do you do with mid-side? What's the type of stuff you do with mid-side?
I love mid-side. I started using mid-side a few months back and getting more in-depth with it. And so an example of what I would use mid-side for would be, I mentioned it on my stereo bus. So one thing I'll do is I'll set a Fab Filter Pro Q to low cut filters, high pass filters, one on the mid and one on the side in the same plugin. And so I'll pull the mid channel, the mid frequency information. I'll filter everything below 25, 30, 35 hertz. So it cleans that up before it hits any compression on my 2-bus. Then I'll take the sides, and depending upon the song and what I've got going on the sides, and I'll clean that up, sometimes as high as 100, 150. I mean, it just depends on the song, so that the low frequencies stay somewhat central. It all depends, like I said, on the song, but That's one way of using mid-side to clean things up on the low end. Then I've got where, say you got an acoustic guitar and a vocal. And the acoustic guitar you want to be intimate and just kind of off-centered so that the vocal can be in the center, but you still want the acoustic pick part or something right in the middle too. You could take 1K and dip it on the acoustic in the middle, but boost it on the sides. So remove 1K or 5K or whatever it is in the middle so that the vocals brightness and clarity can live in the middle, but then boost it on the sides so that then it gets brighter, clearer, or whatever you want on the sides to kind of create a shape there for the vocal and the instrument. You could do that for everything. On my all music bus, I'm always at least trying out mid-side and seeing what I can accomplish with reducing some around 1K down the middle, but then boosting it on the sides, like I mentioned. Automating a mid-side EQ at the hook so that a 10K shelf boosts and makes things a little bit brighter and puts it a little bit more in your face at the hook. Yeah, I love mid-side. Spatial stuff, the wide, you know, stereo with mid-side EQ. There's all kinds of stuff to play with mid-side.
Okay, and another one from me. Vocal melodies, vocal music. What do you do if you deal with vocals like this? What do you do to create vocals that work musically, that actually do music and do music that works with the music?
Can you be more specific? I'm trying to think, like, something I would do. I use Melodyne sometimes to take the vocal melody and write that as MIDI and put it to a synth and use a synth part to complement the vocal. I think you stumped me. You got me.
And I asked the question bad. I'm on this big vocal kick, bro, because vocals right now are the weakest link in our chain, whether it be the artist performing it or the melodies that are created that are supposed to go with the music. The melodies just don't move us. Or some people, when they come in and they write, it's two notes.
Yeah,
you know, it's not actually doing
monotone.
You know, and it's like, okay, what? Like if I go and I listen to a barbershop quartet, I hear music, not just words. There's music. And then I'll go listen to some of our writers and I hear words with sound.
Sure.
And so...
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just a talent thing almost, isn't it? Like, I mean, you can learn it. You can watch YouTube videos with vocals and melodies, but it's almost like if someone's tone deaf, they're tone deaf. If someone's limited in their melodies, maybe pick up bass guitar. I don't know. I mean slam a bass guitarist or slam a vocalist,
but David, I didn't even think about that. I might be pushing somebody who's tone deaf. It didn't even cross my mind.
I think so, man. I think it's a talent thing, which it's okay. Not everybody's talented at that. I'm not the world's best singer. I love to sing, and I do it, and I support in background, and I prefer the studio where I can tune it and do whatever before people hear it. But yeah, it's okay. I don't know. I guess it's just kind of saying it's okay. That's where they're at. That's where they're living in is 2 notes or 4 notes, and try to stretch them a little bit and know that we have the technology in Melodyne to help it. If you're not gonna send me a bunch of hate mail for using Melodyne to enhance something. I know, right? But man, I get creative with pretty much any tool that I have in software. I love it, and I love using it. Auto-tune for certain things. I'm not a big fan of the T-Pain or whatever for everybody, but for some things it sounds cool, and it also helps some people to make music and communicate emotion the way they want. That helps us to not have to listen to their terrible voice. So I'm okay with that in some ways.
David, you had a question. I'm sorry, we were talking at the same time. The other David.
That's totally fine. I was going to ask you, when it comes to your songs, or the artists, you having a problem with the toning there. Are these is the music pre-made? is it being made together with the song and the artist? Because I know for myself that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's different all the time. If I'm in on the process early, I'm pretty on top of, hey, this isn't working, let's try to change the music or change the vocal melody, and I get involved and give my experiences and expertise in that area. But if it's something where I'm mixing and I don't have a whole lot of choice,
Right.
what I'll do then is I'll get to work on melodyne and creating harmonies or changing the melody. Depends on my relationship with the client. I've been known to go in and change a lot and take a lot of risks, and then it's worked out, and then I've taken risks and it's been like, you're fired, I'm never working with you again. So it just depends. But I love creating harmonies. I pretty much automate harmonies, whether it's Melodyne or Isotope is great for that now. I did a tutorial on using that for creating harmonies. It's really cool. But yeah, I do the best I can with what comes to me. And I have a great relationship with most everybody I work with. Thankful for that, and I'm pretty respectful in the way I communicate. So it's a good relationship with most people to explain, hey, I think you're pushing yourself a little bit. Let's try this and see what we can get away with, or hey, let's pull back and stay short and sweet. Sometimes, like this would be an example. Hey, get in and get out of your note. Don't try to hold it out and give me vibrato because your vibrato is not working. Get in and get out. Hit the note, hit the song. Let's move on. Let's see if this track, I'll tighten it up with some tuning, and this is going to give you, the best product for your, so to speak. Because ultimately, I'm serving them. I want to do the best I can for them. And sometimes that's just saying, hey, you're not meant to sing this song that way. I'm being real with you. Get into your note, and get out of your note as quickly as possible. Don't try to hold anything out because it starts shaking and wobbling. And you guys know with Melodyne, we can only do so much.
Another question I was thinking of, I was listening to some Earth, Wind, and Fire last week, and I decided to try and make something similar in sound, dynamic-wise and whatnot. I'm pretty sure I have no problem reaching that RMS. But as far as horns go and things like that, how would you approach a mix that's, from the 70s era, and you want those horns to have that sound? I mean, I'm using synthesizer horns, and I'm sure, the horns that they used back then were not synthesizers.
Sure.
Trying to get that same tone and sound and space with those is pretty tough. I mean, I've come close, but I haven't gotten what I want,
For sure. Something I could touch on, I just I mixed a record, for a hip-hop artist that they used live horns and they layered it with fake horns. And something that I do sometimes, it's a whole nother process to it, and it's a pricey one if you don't already have UAD plugins or the Slate tape simulators and that kind of stuff. But what I'll do is I'll do a pre-mixing session. And in that pre-mixing session, I'm evaluating the song, and I'm going to listen, hey, do these tracks need some extra love? Do they need some saturation? Do they need some tape, warmth, or whatever you want to call it, glue, EQ, almost like an editing / color character session. And I will go in and I will apply different things. Usually I do it pretty quick, and it's the Studer. It's things like saturation knob from Softtube, the new Neve 1073, and I'll actually go track by track and evaluate the song and the sound and what they want, and I will commit to those tones. I use Pro Tools, so I use Audio Suite versions where I'll bounce it and then put it back in to go for that sound. They may not want it to sound like it was from the 70s, so I mean, it just depends on what that communication is with the artist. But yeah, that's a little tip of something I'm doing is going in and taking high end out and distorting things and making it gritty or dirty or adding hiss. I mean, it just depends on the song. But that, from what you're saying, that's what I might probably do with your the synth horns. Would pull them in and put the Studer, even clip them with the Studer, add some distortion, add some grit, dirty them up a little bit, give them that vibe that you're going for before you mix it. Almost taking a production sound design role, which I do even when I'm mixing, but before you actually pull it open and get focused to mix it, do some sound design work for it. Does that answer your question okay?
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
Awesome, man. Sweet. Glad to help.
Anybody else with a question for him?
Well, I just wanted to say thanks. I swear to God, if it wasn't for you guys, I was thinking things just wouldn't happen like they happen right now. I mean, from the from the single band isolate your song in reference to another song, that EQ, the tip.
Yeah, man, that's
some
huge.
other Yeah, to some other stuff. It's just you guys are building something huge, and I don't know if you even know it. I mean, it's really huge. You're helping a lot of people this way.
Oh,
So
that's awesome, man. Dude, I
you
couldn't
should
imagine doing anything else. And this is guys like Dan and Matthew and Dave Pensato and Graham and all the other names out there that have paved the way, man. I'm new to it this year, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I talk to a lot of people daily through Facebook and email, and I love it. It's incredible. So thank you. What is it, like 5 or 6 a.m. where you are right now, right?
five.
Yeah. So thank you for staying up to listen, man. Hear me
It's a pleasure.
blab my mouth.
Yeah.
What
Thanks,
country are
Matt.
you in? I keep forgetting. Is it Bulgaria?
Yeah, it's in Eastern Europe.
Nice. That's
Cool.
incredible.
Thanks,
The other
Matt.
thing. What's
Go
that?
ahead.
No, the other thing I
Go
was going
ahead.
to say, I'm a huge soccer fan. I'm a huge football fan. I grew up playing. It was life was soccer and music. And the World Cup being here, it's insane the amount of relationships I have with people all over the Pensado students group from all over the world because of this game. It's absolutely beautiful to meet and experience that with people. Something like soccer is the world sport, and music is, language that crosses translation. So those two things, this has been huge for me, building relationships and meeting great people all over the world. It's just incredible. So thanks to you guys for allowing me that opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for your support. And I just wanted to chime in real quick and say I dropped a couple of links in, but I realized when it's on YouTube, they don't get that. If you go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/theproaudiofiles, there's a creative automation playlist at the very bottom, which is like 6 or 7 videos from David, all like how to make your hook bigger, how to do cool little tricks, along the way with automation. Check that out. There's also a good acoustic music playlist with an MS video. So all about mid-side on acoustic guitar, and yeah, that's all I got. Oh, and hit us up, with whatever you want to see. I know David's always saying that at the end of his videos, but we mean it. Like whatever you guys want to see, shoot an email to theproaudiofiles@gmail.com or leave a comment on YouTube, because we definitely listen to that stuff and really appreciate it. So, and shout out to David for doing the Hangout.
Oh, Mott, thanks for inviting me, man. It's incredible.
You're welcome, bro. You guys are welcome. Okay, if nobody else has any questions, we're going to call it to a close. You guys, look, any Hangouts that we have, you guys are welcome to come in. You just hit me and Bill up when the Hangouts are going on, and
Cool.
We can bring you right on in. We can do other Hangouts like this. If you guys want to, you guys can do Hangouts anytime, bro. You can set the Hangouts up. We'll help you guys do whatever you guys are doing in the group. But no, I like promoting your product because, well, shit, you guys are good. You're cool as shit, and the product is good.
Appreciate it.
So I can't wait for this vocal stuff to come out, man. So,
hey, well, you can get it now. Mixingvocals.com.
So, all right.
Yep. Mixingvocals.com. It's out. It's now. It's hot. It's selling, and I'm getting incredible.
Wait, which
response
one
from
is
it.
the one that you guys said is not out?
That's Matthew Weiss's, and that's going to be stupid.
Hold on.
sick.
Which one is not out? You guys said one of those is not out.
So mine is out, Mixing Vocals, and it covers.
What's not out yet?
So that's Matthew Weiss mixing what Dan knows what it's called, advanced.
Yeah, it's mixing rap vocals.
Okay, it's Matthew Weiss's stuff that's not.
Yeah, so we have mixinghiphop.com with a mixing rap vocals tutorial, but this is part 2, which is basically that last 10% advanced techniques with. He's using sessions that he did with Snoop, Juicy J, Murs. Yeah, David Glenn's is out. You can go to mixingvocals.com. It's amazing. Just look at the testimonials on that page, and it's like you already know that it's going to be good.
Okay.
Very cool, man.
Thanks,
I already
Dave. It was
know
a
it's
really
gonna
cool
be good,
hangout.
bro.
Hey,
That's
who
what I'm saying.
approves
I
the
already know.
Pensado students
Okay,
group?
I'm sitting there like, hold on,
I
y'all are
sent in
saying
a
it is
request
out, it's not
like a
out.
week or so.
What's that, John? What was that, John?
Can you hear me? Sorry, who
Yeah,
approves
we can hear you.
the group request? Who approves the group request for Pensado students group?
We have 3 or 4 admins. Why? What's cracking? You need something approved?
No, I sent
Hello?
the request in and it didn't get approved yet. I'm
All
sure
right,
you're busy,
I'll get on
guys.
it. One of them's on
Can you hear
vacation.
me?
One of them's probably asleep right now. But yeah, well, you'll be taken care of, bro.
Thank you.
Bill Kamek.
Thank you.
Hit up Bill Kamek or Gordon. Good luck. Bill Kamek or Gordon Gidluck. Don't do Bill yet. He's on vacation. Do Gordon Gidluck, and you'll get a response. All right.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else, you guys, before we head out? Nope. Any last words, Dan or Dave? David?
No, just thanks again, man. It's
Nope.
awesome.
All
Like I
right,
said, I love
everybody.
meeting
We're
new
going to
people.
call it a night. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate your product.
Thanks,
again,
Dave.
man.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
everyone.
Trust me, bro. We appreciate you guys. All right. We're out. You guys have a nice one.
All right, see you, man. See you
You guys
guys.
too. Cheers.
Thanks.